Mike!
Hey, man, how's it going? Just, what are we doing here anyway? Like, what are we doing, brother?
What's up, man? I'm glad you made it, bro.
Yeah, like, what is this? Is this like a party or something?
It's a big surprise. There's a lot of chicks that get wild here, man. I mean, really wild.
All right.
So just come on in, man. You'll love it,
cool.
man. I know it. You'll love it.
I mean, hey, wild chicks, man. It's been a while, I guess.
Welcome, man, to Cannibal Inferno. Woo! Yeah!
This is pretty wild,
man. Let loose. Woo! Yeah!
Hey, is everybody supposed to be, like, naked here? Seems kind of weird.
Yeah, man, don't even worry about it, bro. There's tits and dicks everywhere. We're gonna have a blast.
Yeah, all right, yeah. I mean, shit, fuck, it's crazy.
Dude, I'll be right back. I'm gonna get you a drink, man.
All right, yeah, give me one of those fizzy drinks, the thing with the umbrella.
All right, see you in a second, man.
Jeez, everybody's just kind of staring at me. This is like a dance club or something? Excuse me? Hey, thanks. Nice to see you. I hope you're having a good night. I'll buy you a drink later. Okay. How to do this? Jesus. Where the fuck is Dave at, man? Fucking Dave. Hey! No. What are you doing? Hey, what the fuck? Holy shit! Hey! Oh, my dick!
Cannibal Inferno! As you walk through the valley of the shadow of hell, you will realize that there is something ahead. Something that lurks behind the dark veil. A veil that is beyond our own comprehension. Beyond the void.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to
Beyond the Void
Horror Podcast.
Oh, you're gonna do a not sexy.
Oh, I have to do
time.
the sexy one?
No.
Oh, I thought that was last time, just to like throw everybody off.
Dude, I made it like echo out and like.
Shit. See, I'm fucking shit up already. Goddamn.
Brittany's fucking crazy right now.
Fucking crazy.
But guys, welcome back to the show. It is a brand new week. It is Monday.
Ugh.
And we're going to be fucking rocking your fucking asses off with some fucking awesome movies.
Yeah, that ass you had, say goodbye.
It's going to be blown out.
Oh, God.
Okay, yeah, that sounds really bad.
It's like an overused pussy.
So we're going to be talking about two movies, and we're calling this episode Cannibal Inferno.
Dun, dun, dun.
Cue the disco music.
Dun, dun, dun. I can't do disco. Dun, 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 dun,
Stay
dun, dun,
Cannibal
dun,
Live.
dun,
Cannibal
dun,
Live.
Dun, 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 dun. That works.
Now we're
right?
going to get fucking sued. Thanks, Brittany.
Yeah, sorry. Well, I didn't say any words. You know, it's a pretty iconic little noise.
Oh,
there.
it totally is. That's
Fucking
the
mouth
biggest
band.
fucking
Oh,
disco
fuck.
song you can think of.
Yeah, that's
probably.
literally all my brain did was, oh shit,
Staying Alive.
Staying alive.
That's what a lot of these people did in these
Disco.
movies.
Well, they tried.
But guys, so just so you know, this week is going to be a little bit shorter than most weeks. We are not going to be having a Thursday episode. So unfortunately, we have some things that are planned that we are unable to make it on Thursday, and we apologize for that, but we will make it up to you next week with a
Or
brand
will
new.
we?
Yeah, well, maybe we will, maybe
Just
we
kidding.
won't. If you guys are nice, I don't know.
We'll see.
If you
good.
share this,
We'll
maybe.
think about it.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, this week, definitely only this Monday's episode. So do not check back on Thursday, but make sure you always check back on Thursdays. So today, we're actually going to be mixing part 1 and 2 together in a way. It's almost like what we did for the first, like when we first started this.
Right.
Just like flesh and potatoes. That's all it was. But
flesh.
Now, to give you guys an idea, Brittany is going to tell a story that you're probably not going to want to eat your lunch to. So I'm giving you a fair warning so you know. So this is your warning. You have been warned. So Brittany has some cool news. What have you been up to, Brittany?
So over the weekend, I actually was able to assist on an autopsy.
Ooh.
Which was fantastic.
She was popping ribs.
Popping ribs and brains and all kinds of shit all over the place. It was fabulous. And all of my like extremely hot and unflattering PPE material. So
now, are you allowed to talk about most of this?
I know
that you had a little bit of an issue. You couldn't talk about everything.
No, you can't just due to HIPAA laws and privacy.
Right. Well, of course. I wouldn't want you to do
laws,
that.
Pretty much. Like I can't release a whole lot of details, but I did get the approval from the pathologist that I worked with and my girlfriend Lindsay that brought me on to work the case with them.
Okay.
Kind of like explaining a little bit because a lot of people aren't aware that there are actually like private practice pathologists that pretty much will take up cases for hire from family members or whatever when like a hospital or the county morgue doesn't want to do an autopsy for a body because they don't feel like it's anything suspicious.
Okay.
If that's the case and the family still wants one done, they have the option to hire.
This is what the case was this
private
time.
Practices. Yeah. And so the doctor that she works with, who is fantastic, she's an amazing pathologist and she's incredibly funny. And lighthearted and just really, really cool, which I love because in pathology, you either have one or the other.
Right.
You either have a
super
really,
serious,
really funny, like down to earth, chill pathologist that's going to fucking talk your ear off the whole time and make jokes and make light of the situation to kind of keep you like, keep your brain a little occupied from the fact that you're about to cut open someone who was alive,
right?
24 hours ago.
Well, some people feel that if you make jokes or don't
rude.
take it's rude. It's
right.
it's inconsiderate.
Right, but I mean, if the family's there, you're not going to do that in front of them.
Will they do that in front of them? Wait,
no.
Oh,
no.
Like what?
If family's there, you're not going to crack jokes or whatever about it. Like in that situation, of course not, unless the family's cool as fuck. Like,
let's laugh about death.
Let's laugh about the fact that your grandpa's dead.
Yeah, and that would really hurt if he was still alive. Right? Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I? Wow, you guys aren't laughing. What the hell?
But yeah, or there's the extremely not even a dry sense. They have no humor. They're just like dried vaginas.
I am an autopsy.
Super robot, and they just aren't interesting. I mean, they're interesting because they're incredibly intelligent. However,
of course,
everybody's just
different.
Very straight to the point. In and out, kind of just get this done, and it doesn't really help with the educational purpose behind it. I feel.
So the big question is, did you get to crack those ribs?
Did I get to crap the ribs?
Did you crap on those ribs?
I crapped on those ribs.
Did you dump a log on some? Oh my God, how disrespectful!
I actually have kind of like a funny. It's not funny. It's actually kind of terrifying, but and also like a little bit of a weird fact of something that occurred before we even made like the first cut.
Right.
On the body. We're sitting there and the patient was positive for some type of hepatitis. Records are a little bit foggy if it, as to the specific type that it was, which happens quite often where you'll get, contradictory records.
Okay.
However, there's a positive post about this person having hepatitis, so we have to treat the body. We treat every body very carefully, but you have to treat this one extra careful.
Every body.
Every quote unquote body. Yeah. I mean, you're supposed to treat everybody with universal precautions anyways.
Of course, yeah.
In a situation where there's something present, you're even more careful.
Aware, yeah.
And you're more aware and you're a little bit more cautious as far as where you're putting your hands or where, someone's making a cut versus where you're trying to touch when you're interested in something. Or so like for me, I had to be really careful of where like I don't stick my hands inside a body cavity when she's making an incision just because I want to be like, I want to feel that, and I'm very hands-on with everything that I want to do. And I'm like, I want to touch the fat. I want to touch the heart. I want to touch everything. And so I was very cautious about keeping my hands behind me and watching and asking before I would touch anything.
Okay.
Just to be sure that the playing field was clear, essentially.
Okay.
But before we even started,
playing field
for me, it's playing field.
I'm sorry. I should be
I know I
laughing.
probably sound so insensitive about it, but
you are. You want a bitch.
I know. It was cool. So we're standing there and she's getting ready and she's kind of discussing, how she's going to make the first incisions and how she gets ready to, prep this and get it going. She goes along and she marks everything down on her, she actually has the full, front and back portrait of the body, basically not the actual person, but it's just a picture of like a front and back view of a body. And we go through and we mark every single weird spot first. We make comments of whether, the patient's circumcised, whether they're not circumcised, things like that nature.
Very important stuff.
Absolutely. And it can, it seems kind of weird, but it can be something that's helpful down the line.
Why do you have to slip in some sort of intelligent dick joke, Brittany?
This is what I do. But before we actually got started, I looked up at the shoulder of the corpse that's in front of us, and I noticed there's a fucking mosquito sitting on his shoulder, and it is actively sucking. And
just getting fat.
Yeah, and he's not embalmed. There's no embalming fluid or anything in him. Like, it's just, if he can get anything out of his body, he's getting contaminated blood because this person has hepatitis. And I'm just sitting there going,
Ooh.
I'm looking at it and I'm like, first of all, I might sound completely stupid to some people who I don't fucking study mosquitoes. So to me, I thought that they would only go for things that are live. However, it makes sense that they're not going to know the difference necessarily. I mean,
right.
But everybody was
whatever
kind of surprised.
Blood melon they can suck on.
Right. But everybody was a little surprised about that in the room, that he was actually actively sucking on it. And there's multiple bodies in this room.
Did you have to kill it?
And oh yeah, we killed it. We killed the fuck out of that bug. Let me tell you.
You got it the first swing?
Fuck yeah.
Okay, with like your hand or like a...
She smacked it with her glove, but we have like 3 pairs of gloves on. She smacked it right with her hands, and then she switched out her gloves and changed them. And I mean, there's no way in hell that
goddamn lawyers, man.
But it was kind of terrifying because
what if it flew up and sucked on your neck?
If I wouldn't have noticed that fucking bug, like that stupid fucking mosquito in that moment, once he would have departed from that body, if he got anything from there, that's hepatitis that he's going to go and spread.
Right. How did it smell?
Fine.
You didn't puke, or you didn't have to put that weird white chalk on your nose?
No.
That they do in the movies?
You have to wear so much personal protective equipment. Like, you're wearing this full gown that wraps all the way around you, and there's actually like a rubber lining in the front.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more heavy in the front part of you, but it helps to protect from getting injured or cut.
It's crazy.
And to keep blood off of your clothes, keep body fluids and stuff off your clothes if something goes awry, or you perforate a fucking bowel and it shoots shit all over you or whatever. But which can happen.
So they could like pee on you?
And this was an incredibly bloody autopsy.
Was it I'm sorry. Never mind. I'm just sorry. I'm so curious now since you said that.
So we killed a mosquito, and then we continue. Since the patient had the diagnosis that they did of having a hepatitis, the pathologist, took the lead and did all of the major incisions and
so that it wouldn't squirt
and most
up.
of the removals, mainly because she technically needs to be the one doing it. And she was a little sad because she kind of wanted to have Lindsay, take the lead and have me assist in more things. She's also a mom, and so she's very extra cautious with us. Like, we're young and we have our whole lives ahead of us, and she's looking at it like, I don't want to be responsible if something happens. And it was really cool. And
so did you pop the ribs and shit?
I got to actually, like, she showed me how she does it. She obviously like does the whole, it's not necessarily it's kind of like a Y incision, but it's not like how they make it seem like a straight Y in the movies.
Sure, yeah.
It actually comes up from the tops of like the shoulders and comes all the way down, and then it goes all the way down, and then they go around the belly button and then take it down past the pubic bone.
Okay. Oof.
And then she has to sit there.
So was this a male or female?
It was a male.
Okay.
But that's pretty much as much as I can talk about.
No, that's fine. Like, I don't need to know anything more.
I can't give like ages or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I can say, like, they did come from a hospital, so it was interesting to see that they still had the tube down their throat and everything. And
they didn't even take that out?
Mm-mm. They still had like a pick line in their neck and stuff that they were using because it was after like a surgery and stuff.
Oh.
It was really interesting to see like how it was done. And I will say, like, I was a little apprehensive. Like, in the first instance, I had to help her lift the body bag out from underneath the corpse. And so that's, she first had to straighten the one arm out because
and it was real stiff.
His arm was up on his, like, resting on his chest.
Oh, no.
And so once rigor sets in,
it's impossible almost.
You have to break bones a lot of the time in order to just like rest them where you need them. She didn't have to break any of the bones, thankfully, but she had to fucking yank it to get it to be straight enough. So then, of course, she has me come up and grab up by the shoulder and then grab down by the hip bone and pull him towards me so she can get underneath it. And I'm still trying to wrap, and I've seen dead bodies a million times in my life, but I haven't really had to like touch one, or, quote unquote, play with one or anything like that. So for me, I was like, okay, I've dealt with plenty of people, but they're still alive, just unconscious, but that's still the same kind of dead weight.
So did you have to work it like they do in Return of the Living Dead? Do you know what I'm talking about? He's like, this is something that you'll never learn in the books. He's like, this is something they don't teach you in school. And he was like, you got to work the arms to get him loose.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not as like gentle as it kind of appears
in that
like,
movie.
Yeah, in movies or in any type of like a documentary or something that you watch.
So it was like Poppy.
She really just went and grabbed the arm and set it into place where she needed it to be straight.
Oof.
And you didn't hear anything. I was bracing for like a pop or like a clear break sound, but that didn't happen.
Huh.
So,
interesting.
Yeah, it was really interesting. But the cool part, so she showed me how to do, she has to separate all of the muscle and
from
fat and everything from the chest and the abdominal cavity and then kind of fillet it out.
Right.
So it sets out on its own. Like we didn't have to use the forceps to keep it open. It just kind of stayed flat on the side.
Okay. Is that typical or no?
It depends on the body. I think it depends on the size
of
the corpse and how
fit or not they
are. So if they
Makes
have
sense.
weight to it, it'll stay flat.
Okay.
To the sides, or if it's a small body cavity or something, you kind of need to have the like forceps in there to keep it open.
Gotcha.
But we didn't need to do that. So she started to begin prepping to remove the rib cage. So she does kind of like an incision where she starts towards the base and then goes up towards the top, and it's like a line that goes up that you follow with the actual straight up garden shears to go in and cut the rib cage.
Oh, it is straight up garden shears.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like they look like big pruning shears.
Was it easy to pop?
The first, like once you get to the last 3 ribs towards the upper area,
upper area, that's harder. Yeah,
that's hard.
Yeah.
The last one up towards the collarbone area is hardest to break through.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have to have
that's like a bolt cutter action right there. Yeah,
you got to put some fucking body behind it. And
did you do all of them all the way up?
I did the right side entirely myself.
Really?
And cut all the way up through. And I watched her the first time on the left side. But it was interesting.
This is fascinating, by the way.
As soon as she made the first incision to kind of start to separate where we needed to start the cuts, like just blood instantly starts pooling out.
Did it squirt out or no?
It didn't squirt. Like there wasn't
heavily.
Yeah, it just.
So it was like because you were piercing the lung.
Well, he had a significant amount of blood pooled in the left side of his chest cavity and abdominal wall. So it was just that side. And it was literally just fucking pools out. And then as soon as we made the cuts into the ribcage on that left side, everywhere.
Wow.
It was so much blood. It was insane.
So are you allowed to talk about what you found out about this?
We ended it as inconclusive.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because we thought it was going to be a pretty clear-cut case considering the patient's history and under the circumstances of which he passed, and we looked at it going, and then the pooling of all the blood
which makes like that makes me wonder.
We had a pretty great idea of what happened. However, the further we got into it, the more we realized this is not going to be as clear cut as we thought it was going to be. Dude,
immediately, and I know this is like kind of off subject a little bit, but immediately I think of it's not off subject, but Autopsy of Jane Doe. Have you seen that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Like just that whole process is so fascinating. Like how they find layers of stuff.
It's incredible. And I watch I'm notorious myself of watching autopsy videos and documentaries,
right.
And educational courses.
Or like knee surgeries and
while I'm eating dinner.
What?
I'll be eating dinner and watching it, and
why are you gonna be so badass?
Crazy
Brittany?
Thing to me was later on when we were dissecting the organs, because she takes pieces of each organ that she takes home and that that she studies, that she does different path reports and stuff on, and gross dictations and things like that, and tests for further disease or further damage or whatever.
Right.
And the whole time, like, I'm sitting there and she's doing this, and I'm just going, I'm fucking starving. Like, I just want to go eat something so bad. I'm like trying to think of like what I want to eat afterwards. Like.
So what did they say? Procedure. So let me ask you this. So what did they say about your demeanor and everything with the whole situation? She was like, "This is for you," or Did they give you any tips or pointers or
Well,
thoughts?
she, at first, I kind of came off like I looked like I was thinking I was hurting him a little bit. So I came off a little bit.
Too eager?
No, not eager. I came off a little bit too nervous about it, as to where I wasn't disassociating the fact that this is a corpse. This isn't a living person. I can't hurt them. They don't have any feelings. So I was
you're making license plates here.
I was a little bit more
it's your first time,
tender,
though.
essentially, like with this person. I was a little bit more kind and more not to say that they're not kind. They are.
What do they expect? You're not a sociopath.
Well, no, but I know. And I think it's just because of, and Lindsay was actually the one that made the comment about it. And I think it's because she knows me.
Right. Well, I'm just thinking to myself, like, does everybody that does this have to be a sociopath? Like,
no, absolutely not.
Because I would assume that just about anybody would be in that particular situation.
Right.
Probably 10 times worse than you were.
Apprehensive or whatever. I felt the same. They're right. And, she was right in the comment that she made. Because I was feeling that way about myself too. I was trying to be like, look, I need to separate. Like, this was pretty much my test for myself to determine, can I hack it in this profession?
Right.
Because this is something I've wanted to pursue for a very long time, but I wanted to actually get my hands dirty in the process to determine if I wanted to spend that amount of money and that amount of time, to go to school for it, because it is a long time.
Right.
Like, it is a lot of school, it is a lot of money, and you invest a lot of yourself into that field.
So what do you think?
Oh, I'm so in.
I would assume.
Like,
it sounds like you're ready to drink tea and eat a fucking hoagie off the chest.
Yeah, I mean,
they
fed me fucking punch, I'd fucking take it, and I'd die for those people. Like, I don't know, that was an amazing experience for me.
All the fucking horror movies that I've seen and everything like that, I'm trying to make this fucking website.
It prepares you for absolutely
nothing. Silly thing, but there's like, I picture you being one of the, what I call corpse sandwich peoples. Corpse sandwich is when you see a movie when they're eating a sandwich on top of a dead person.
That would be me.
So
yeah, it doesn't bother me at all.
So you have to be a part of the corpse sandwich pot.
I'm so about it, because like I said, that whole time I'm sitting there going, I'm so hungry.
It's so ridiculous.
I want a steak, or I want a sandwich, or I want something.
So, by the way, next time you do something really cool like this, I'm going first to tell what happened to me, so that it's not as bad.
Okay.
Like leading in.
I will say my favorite part, though, about the whole thing was I got to do a lot more than I thought I was going to be able to do. Like, I got to really get my fucking hands dirty in the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which was excellent.
No, you did. You did a whole side.
But I did a whole side, but I actually got to, she wanted the brain, of course. And
oh, you had to fucking drill it.
Well, no, she takes a bone saw and they do, extremely precise cuts into the skull. And once they do the cuts, and especially when you're not sure what's going to be done with the body, whether they're going to be cremated or whether it's going to be an open casket, if you're not sure what's going to happen with it afterwards, you have to be very careful and you have to do your incisions based on that. So since we didn't know, we have to start the incision a whole lot further back on the skull. And then you have to so we started it.
Yeah, so they started on the back of the head. Right. I thought it was always on the front.
It can't, it can be. And if it's not going to be something that's going to be viewed, like you can start it up in this area and then it's easier to peel that back this way versus the opposite. So the way we had to do it was we start back by the crown of the head or the top
pull
part
the
of the
skin
head.
Forward.
Yes. And you have to pull
over
the skin
face.
Forward over the face. And since we don't know what's going to happen with the face, we can't necessarily, unless you're extremely skilled with a scalpel, to go in there and separate the layers of muscle from the facial structure, like the bones and the skull. You actually have to physically take your hands and put your hands between the skin and the skull and separate. So you literally have to push
and pop.
And you feel everything. And I have little Vienna sausage fingers.
I'm so glad I'm drunk right now.
So it was a little difficult for me to get it, and she had me help her, get in there to do it, and it was a little harder for me because my little Vienna sausage fingers were not allowing for it, but and I kept feeling like I was gonna perforate through his fucking face, and I'm like, God damn it, if my fucking fingers go through this guy's forehead, I'm gonna feel so bad because I just fucked his whole face up.
Jeez,
and then,
it doesn't even matter at this
the
point,
makeup
Brittany.
artist is gonna be really mad at me if she
oh
has
my
to paint
God,
that. So it was Everybody wants to hear about it. I got fucking bombarded at this party that I went to like the day after or the night after, like a couple hours after I did the procedure. Anyways, so the cool part when you actually have to separate the skull cap, like remove the skull cap from the skull to get the brain out.
Okay.
You take this like big metal straight up mallet. It's like a
to pop the skull off.
Right. And so it's the mallet on this end, and then the other end is a curved hook. And
kind of like a shoehorn.
Right. And then there's a piece that looks it's a key, essentially. So it has a flat end that you would use to hit. You'd use the mallet to hit that in, and then
unlock in consciousness.
Pretty much. So you place the key into the top part of the skull. Bone saws are incredible because they can cut through fucking bone, but they will not cut your hand.
Okay.
So you place the key in, you take the mallet, hammer it.
Pop.
One really good click. You hear it pop. You twist the key, and it goes, and it pops the skull, like the skull cap, a little bit out of place.
Like a soda.
Pretty much. And then you take the hook end of the mallet and hook it in. And then I got to do this part, which was the greatest fucking experience of my life. Let me tell you. And so I have to hold on to to the corpse's forehead. You take the hook part that's attached into the skull cap, and you have to yank it back to essentially rip the skull cap and the membrane off of the brain in order to open it and release it. And let me tell you, and I'm going to sound like such a sick fuck to everybody listening, but it was the most gratifying feeling and sound ever.
That's weird.
It was incredible, and I cannot replicate it.
Does it sound like a suction cup or some shit?
A little bit. But it's like the noises that it makes, like I can't make the sound effect myself.
That's crazy, man.
And it's one of those things that you can't do it unless you're actually in there physically recording that happening. And it's the same with the ribs. And the cool thing with the rib cage is they keep that full thing intact, and you put it to the side. And
I need a cigarette right now.
After you're done,
I feel like I've been fucked mentally.
I know, right? But here's one more fun fact that a lot of people didn't know. After you're done with all of the pieces that you don't use from the organs, so I got to literally see everything. I got to see the prostate glands. I got to see pretty much like the butthole from the inside view of it. I got to see the spinal cord from the inside once everything has been cleared out. I got to feel the lungs, which the lungs are the coolest fucking thing to ever feel. Like they just have the cool,
like
you can just feel the air sacs.
Ooh, weird.
And it's so cool. It reminds me of like bubble wrap. Like if you just run your fingers over tiny bubble wrap.
You were something else. Let me tell you.
It was excellent. Like it feels so cool. And he had one completely
pop.
Yeah. He had one completely deflated lung. And so the difference, being able to feel the difference between the deflated lung versus the quote unquote healthy lung, there's a big difference. But so after you get in there and you take and they take every piece out individually, the bowels, the intestines, they take the lungs.
They hollow it out pretty much.
Gallbladder.
Well, if you're looking at the spine, kidneys, I would assume.
Everything. Yeah. And it's out. It's gone. They take everything out, and they take cross sections and cuts of everything. Like they cross section out the brain, they cross section out, they cut through the lungs, they cut through everything. And they take pieces that they keep, and then the rest they just put in a big biohazard bag that we usually keep like between the corpse's legs.
You're like a butcher.
So we toss everything that we don't use into this big bio bag. Once everything is said and done, everything's been taken out and we're done. You close up that bio bag, and you actually stuff the bio bag back into the stomach cavity, back into where you just removed everything. You stick all of the parts back in the bag inside there. Yeah. Pop the rib cage back on top. And sew the body up. Otherwise, the body is completely hollowed. And
so you don't just dump it in. You keep the plastic in there?
You keep it all together.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And you put it all back in. And I was like, holy fuck. Like, that makes sense. Because
it does, because
otherwise
it's their body.
Completely folded in on itself. And it looks hollow, and it looks like nothing's there. And it looks completely alien.
Weird.
And really weird.
So you have to like mash it to
so
like
you pretty much have to make it look. Yeah. Oh, we had to too. To me, he actually looked a little bit fatter afterwards.
Huh.
Which is uncommon.
Wow.
But
I watched a movie. Jesus Christ, Brittany!
I've watched so many documentaries.
Guys, you're hearing it here first. You got your live autopsy practically right here.
Absolutely incredible experience.
Where are you going to hear that? Are you going to hear that on any other podcast? I probably would think not.
Probably not.
So thank you, dude.
So since I'm going to be pursuing this, you'll probably hear a lot more about it in the future.
Well, I'm not even going to talk about what happened to me this week because clearly it pales in comparison. But I will say that there is one thing that we have been doing recently that you know about. We actually have a brand new group that we're doing on Facebook. And it's just something that we're really trying to grab on to some of the biggest horror nerds. And a lot of you that are listening now, probably who follow our page or our Twitter or whatever, probably already know about it. But we have a page called Do You Love Horror? And this is a very non-egotistical thing. It's really just about like, we love horror. We want creators. We want people who are just horror fans, people who just like to talk about horror in general to join up. So we will provide a link below if you guys want to join up on Facebook and you are on Facebook. So far, we've gotten quite a fucking
It's
group.
been pretty well received.
Yeah,
which
like
is
I'm
great.
very surprised.
And I'm actually in like another horror group too that another friend
I'm
of
in,
mine
like,
started,
7.
But I feel like this one's gained more traction in a shorter period of time.
And
so it's
people
really
talk
interesting.
about it. Like the
They
thing
do.
I love about it is like people will, I wanted to make it a point when we started this group, like, hey, there are other groups that you can just post memes in and not
Yeah,
care.
please don't do it in this one.
But like, I don't mind memes. I don't mind memes.
Fuck off with your
but
gifs.
but like,
GIFs, whatever.
let's
the fuck.
like really have a conversation here. And that's what I really wanted to kind of like push.
Right.
And I was like, it's cool if you are in a fucking podcast or whatever it is that you're doing. If you're a filmmaker, if you're a book writer or whatever it is, but don't just fucking spit out like, hey, here's a fucking sticker and you slap it across our group and then just walk away. Like if that's what you want to do, then you're not a part of the group that we want to be a part of. Like, this is what we want to do. We want to have people that want to have conversations to instigate some sort of like horror communication with everybody. So, and so far, I think it really has been pretty well received.
Right.
So if you guys want to join up, you're more than welcome to. It's called Do You Love Horror ? On Facebook. And we'll post a link below. So if you want to join up, please do, because we want horror to thrive. So
Exactly.
if you are interested in horror and you really truly are a fan and you really want to be a part of it, we do a lot of different things and we're open to suggestions too. So if you're interested, please do follow us at Do You Love Horror ?
Click
on
it.
Facebook.
Click the link
So-
below. Bing, 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 bing.
But I think it might be that time, Brittany.
Oh shit!
Horror shots! All right, guys, so we are back and we're going to be doing a special horror shot for you this week. And it is actually an ode to cannibals and more in particular, probably Cannibal Holocaust.
Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. And we're watching 2 movies this week, and that's why it's called Cannibal Inferno, and it might even be called like the autopsy of Cannibal.
The autopsy of a Cannibal Inferno.
Yeah, right. Like, I want to come up with some sort of disco song, but don't hold me to it, guys, just
Something
yet.
that's not staying alive.
Yeah.
We're not trying to stay alive in here, apparently.
Pop, pop, pop.
That's perfect.
So if you guys are familiar with Cannibal Holocaust, one of the most iconic scenes that was not real, looks like a girl being impaled from vagina to mouth, and the spike goes directly up through her like a shish kebab.
Mm-hmm. Which is excellent how they actually did that.
Yeah, and like she was so into it,
The
like
practical, yeah. The director actually made comments about how insanely
Still-
calm that she was about
Yeah.
the entire filming of that.
right.
of that
Don't
scene.
say how they did it
I
yet.
won't. We'll get into that in the flesh and potatoes.
Yes,
'Cause it's
but
glorious.
we decided that we were going to call this shot. We had 2 names, and I'll tell you the first one. First one was Cannibal Smiles, which is pretty tame,
It's pussy.
I think, for us.
Yeah.
And then the one that I was like rooting for and Brittany was all about too was Chick on a Stick.
Shishka tits. Oh my
Shishka
god. I'm
tits.
sorry. I just thought of that and I was like, holy fuck, that's good. I gotta say it. Shishka tits. Woo. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's the side name. It's the like
This is what happens. Chick
it's-
on a stick, aka
Brittany. It's not the
tits.
preferred nomenclature.
It's my preferred.
It's so
It's
funny.
so good.
dude.
It's just like the titty milk, and we didn't want to call it
So-
titty milk, but
so
it still
in-
got called titty
Yeah,
milk.
in caps or whatever the fuck. I'll put it like
Quotes.
Shishka tits.
Air quotes.
Yeah.
Shishka tits.
But it's called Chick on a Stick, which is still good, but Shishka Tits is pretty
Shishka tits.
awesome.
God damn it.
And thank God for Brittany being a female on the show, because I would not get away with that.
You're welcome. If you're a feminist,
yeah.
Sorry?
Like,
I don't know.
that's how we are. And it's like, that's why I say it's like, I know so many females that are so fucking fucked up, like you. Anyway, guys, to give you an idea what we're going to be doing with this shot, it's a special shot.
It's just a bunch of bad decisions.
Yeah, it is a bad decision, but that's what horror shots is all about.
Like, that bottle's really pretty, though.
By the way, guys, if you ever do a horror shot and you were of age,
record it. Tell us about it.
We had one person do
Especially
that.
If you're hot.
Yeah, which
well,
you're
I mean,
all
if you're
hot.
Not hot. I don't care. You're all
personally,
hot to me.
if you're listening to us, you're all fucking hot.
Pretty much.
You're fucking gorgeous, sexy beasts.
Yeah, we touch
like
our
male,
to you.
female, dog, whatever.
Dog, please
ferret.
Don't get your dogs drunk. Don't do it.
And don't fuck dolls. Oh,
well, I mean, you can fuck dolls, but I don't want to see it unless it's a cool doll, and then I'm interested. But don't hurt your fucking animals, or I will find you and destroy you.
So now I want to give a little bit of a shout out to Patrick. Because he did donate towards this, because it is his alcohol that he left for the show because he wanted to make sure we had really good choices. So Patrick gave us this thing called Three Amigos, which is essentially a liqueur.
Tequila liqueur.
It's a tequila liqueur, which is odd because it looks like whiskey.
It smells
and
like
it's
whiskey.
100% blue agave tequila and the best ingredients available, which is like
dog.
Yeah, like what the fuck is that? Like dog
piss.
tallow?
Dog tail.
So we're gonna be doing that. It's basically blue agave tequila. If you got something close to it, if you have Three Amigos, you're amazing.
Yeah, Three Amigos is excellent. Otherwise, just use a fucking tequila.
So you're essentially gonna pour a half a shot of the tequila.
I'm gonna die, guys. I'm gonna fight Alex.
Then we got amaretto liqueur. You're gonna pour almost a half a shot.
So if you go to a legit as fuck Italian restaurant, they will give you free shots of amaretto at the end of your dinner.
Really?
They will. At least the one that we go to.
Well, that is a very Italian thing, I guess.
It's a beautiful thing.
Then, to spruce it up, and just for the sake of color, we put in some grenadine. One of the top ingredients on the BTV.
It's just for that perfect little spritz of fresh blood from mouth to anus.
Well, it could be vagina.
I'm pretty sure
Let's be honest.
It looks like anus to me.
Oh, yeah, she was sitting, huh?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty comfy.
It looked comfy. I'm like, I'd sit on that. I'd sit on that pole. Sorry, mouse.
Well, some poles are longer than others.
Oh, he's not.
And the one in this movie is way longer than
he's not lacking in that department.
Well, yeah, but let me
just. If his pole was that long, I'd be screaming.
Yeah,
and running
that's like
the fuck
insanely
away.
big.
I'd be like, don't even think about touching me with that. No, thank you.
All right, guys. So here we go. Here's the shot.
These shot glasses are adorable, by the way. They're little fucking shotgun casings.
So what do we? Cheers. Should we have some cool thing that we?
We can't talk about the alternative name because I will spit it all.
How about we just like have really insidious smiles towards
each other? How about we cheers to the corpse I cut up this past weekend?
Yeah. Hey, here's to
thanks, dead guy.
Eating flesh.
Here's to that dead guy that I cut up this weekend. Thanks, buddy.
Cheers.
Cheers. Ooh.
Oh, that was weird.
That was a bad choice.
Yeah, that's weird.
I don't understand. It started out like really rough, but then got really sweet, but like too sweet.
It's too sweet. Yeah, it's almost like we didn't even drink anything at all.
Interesting, but
I've never had Three Amigos, so I don't fucking know.
I'm gonna feel that later.
Ugh.
I'm gonna come home and puke on my husband. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, just puke all over his large log.
I'm gonna puke all over your big old dick.
All right, guys. So that's it for the horse shots.
Horse shots.
Scalpel.
Forceps.
Prosthetic.
Butthole.
Something. Butthole. Foreskin.
Poop hole.
It's the fucking news.
Here is the fucking news.
All right, guys, we are back for the news, and we have some pretty interesting stuff. Like, we have quite a few things that we want to bring up. We usually do about 5 and just kind of like run with it. But something that was exploding all over the internet's face and back was...
Boy just discovering his wiener for the first time. It was glorious.
Quentin Tarantino's next film will explore one of the most infamous murders of all time. And that is the Charlie Manson murders, which he didn't really even lay a finger, but Sharon Tate...
He's actually one of the only convicted murderers that's never actually
killed anybody. He just used his mind.
Just orchestrated the entire thing.
Yeah, he used his mind.
He was just so great about brainwashing other people to commit the murders for him.
So crazy, man. And you know, he used to be actually a fucking music writer. Him and one of the guys from the Beach Boys. Fucking
insane.
Yeah. Quentin Tarantino has decided that, you know, he's tackled Hitler, he's tackled slavery, he's tackled fucking Reservoir Dogs, and that doesn't really matter. But now he's going to tackle Charlie Manson. So sources tell Variety, which is where we're reading this from, that Tarantino's upcoming movie, which the filmmaker has already written and will direct, will focus on the Manson family murders. Insiders close to the project indicate that while no one is attached or has read for a part yet, Tarantino is expected to court a A-list talent.
Of course, he always does.
Margot Robbie.
Margot?
It's
Margot.
Margot. Maggot.
It's Margot.
Okay. All right. Margot Robbie and Jennifer Lawrence are being considered for the role of Sharon Tate.
Tate.
I said that.
You said taint. It was fantastic.
Well, her husband was a rapist.
It was great.
I'm sorry, it's horrible. He was a child rapist, whatever.
Oh, Jesus.
We're a little drunk here at the BTV. And Brad Pitt may be approached to play Vincent Bugliosi, the lawyer who prosecuted the family. The tragedy occurred on August 8th, 1969, when the cult leader Charles Manson, an unemployed convict and failed musician, yeah, ordered a group of his followers to attack the guests of a house in Los Angeles, Benedict Canyon. The followers brutally murdered everyone at the home, including Tate, who was 8 months pregnant at the time. And that is insanely brutal. And guys, if you've been listening to us for a while, we talked about this murder in depth with our Rosemary's Baby. We did Pregnant Horror. I forget what it was called exactly, but it was a really good episode, though. Like, we talked about Sharon Tate.
Well, yeah, you did Inside, too.
Right.
Which is fucking insane.
It was, yeah, that's right.
Ooh,
yeah.
It was nuts.
That is a crazy story. And I almost feel like if you look at like some of Quentin Tarantino's other movies, like Inglourious Bastards.
Which I hated.
Is that what is he going to turn it into?
I hated that fucking movie. And
really? I didn't mind it.
I feel like at first I didn't feel like I was alone in my stance of not liking that film, but now I feel like I am, and maybe I just need to rewatch it again.
I like it
and kind of try and give it another go. But I mean, there's characters that I love in the film.
Oh yeah,
and the story is meh. Any Tarantino film, he's a fucking fantastic casting person. Like his casting people are amazing.
Music,
the music's great. The cast is always great. The dialogue is pretty great all the time, and there's little jokes in there that are good. There's bits that are always funny. The violence is good. Like there's always it's always solid.
Right.
It's just that was my least favorite film, and I feel like it was probably because they were comparing it so heavily to being the next Pulp Fiction. That's what pissed me off, because it's nowhere near the same level or capacity as Pulp Fiction was as a film. Pulp Fiction is a fucking classic. Everybody knows Pulp Fiction. Everybody loves Pulp Fiction. If you don't, I really question your taste. They compared it to, his next big film.
I hope it's good because I'm like open to it. I've heard some of my friends or people that I know that are like, oh, he's like the SJW leader. And I'm like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Like just because he's tackling subjects that nobody else does, that makes him an SJW person.
And in reading a lot of reviews of people saying that he's the worst person that could be directing this film or whatever. I don't feel that way.
I don't think so either. I'm kind of open to it. I'm like,
I mean, this is a little bit of a new territory.
It's touchy
to be doing a true crime.
Yeah, it's very touchy because it's like you don't want to be disrespectful,
right?
So he's got to be like factual, but in the same respect, he's got to be theatrical,
right?
So it's like,
this is going to be very different for anything that he's done.
Yeah.
You know, this is true crime. This happened. You know, this
right.
is something
You can't spice it up.
No, there's no spicing to be done. There's no fabricating to be done. You have to take the story that was given to you and you got to run with it and you got to do it differently than anyone else has ever done it. And that's where I think he's going to be great, because he's going to be able to put a little bit of a different spin on it and make it more interesting to people, you know, in our age ranges, or and make it interesting to people that don't know or don't follow that story so heavily. Because I mean, now
it's almost been lost
been a
by
long
now.
time.
Yeah.
And it's been coming back more recently because of the questions of letting him out of jail and things like that, compassionate release and things of that nature, because he's dying, you know, and so it makes it a little bit more relevant to today. Yeah, I mean, I have mixed feelings about the whole thing, to be honest. I don't want anybody innocent to get hurt, but still, like,
of course, but it makes you wonder, because it's like, if you know that you're dying, like, fuck
you're gonna
go
out in a fucking blaze of glory.
That's
like,
what I'm saying. Like, light it up, motherfuckers!
I'd go and actually commit a goddamn crime. Like, he's the one that he was never committed of actually doing. He never put his hands on anybody.
Yeah, like, fuck it, right?
So
that's what I'm saying.
Be like, I'm gonna go fucking kill someone. Like, whatever. I'm gonna die anyway because I'm old and I have cancer. But whatever. I hope that either Margot Robbie or Jennifer Lawrence is cast, because I masturbate to both those ladies on a regular. So.
In other news,
sorry, Mouse.
No, there is another new short from fucking Oats Studios, Neil Blomkamp camp. The Neil Blomkamp camp.
Blomkamp camp.
Yeah. If you guys don't know who he is, he's the fucking District 9 guy, Elysium guy. He's fucking pretty amazing with fucking CGI and special effects, like practical even. They came up with a new short called Zygote, and I'll be honest, man, like, the creature in this is fucking amazing. So if you guys haven't seen that, there is a link down below, and there's always a link down below for any of the stuff that we talk about on Horror Amino, and Do You Love Horror, and any of the other places that we post our stuff. So make sure you check that out. Also, there's another trailer out that is looking pretty fucking amazing, guys. Like, Devil's Gate trailer is out, and it looks fucking amazing. Originally, this movie was called Abduction, and it's called Devil's Gate. It is just the right amount of fucking practical effects to make you go, ooh, this is nice. And it looks it's a little bit of a weird cast as far as, like, who's involved, but I'm okay with it. I think it's looking pretty good, and that's going to be coming out soon. They haven't announced a date yet, so. Also, Ghoulie News, a website that is dedicated strictly to the movies Ghoulies, G-H-O-U-L-I-E-S, which we need to do, Brittany, I'm telling you. Apparently, not long ago, there was talk about a Ghoulies 2 media book. And apparently, they're going to be releasing a German version of the fully uncut Ghoulies 2, which is a huge deal. Like, there's been an uncut that no one's ever seen, and, well, some people have seen, but it's going to be released on Blu-ray in German, and I'm kind of curious if it's going to be region-free or not. So it doesn't really say. It just said, I just confirmed that all the footage I sent them and more is included in the Ghoulies 2 Blu-ray, which hits streets tomorrow. And this was just this past week. I urge you all to find a copy of this limited edition version. Once word gets out, they'll be gone.
Oh, for sure.
So if you guys are interested and you have, I don't know if it's, like I said, I don't know if it's region free or not, but I'm almost kind of tempted to buy it. I think they should have a whole set, and it would be nice to have this and then replace the disc for whatever set they end up doing.
Yeah, you're pretty passionate about it, so I would suggest
buying
it.
Another really cool thing that we found out about, brand new shirts from Cavity Colors.
Woo-woo.
Cavity Colors is putting out The Void. They have 2 different shirts and an extra pin. They've got 2 new, really super kick-ass shirts for The Void. If you're a fan of The Void, you better fucking get on this, because honestly, by the time I'm telling you this on a Monday, it might be fucking gone. And we're recording this on a Thursday night, so
they're incredible. Don't
they
miss out on that
really
shit,
good.
They are fan-fucking-tastic.
Beautiful. I couldn't decide on it.
The artwork is incredible.
I couldn't decide on what I wanted. Christina was like, all right, we'll get 2 for you, and I'm picking 1 for me because I know which one I want.
I need a surprise Mouse and get him one.
They're fucking beautiful, man.
I don't wear t-shirts because I'm a lady and I have giant titties. And t-shirts look real fucking weird. Boobies, big old boobies look weird in t-shirts.
Big old titties.
Them tickle bitties look real weird in that t-shirt.
Hell yeah.
So I'm like, that ain't gonna work for me.
In other news, in other crazy
That's
news,
tequila, Jesus Christ.
Frank Darabont, who used to be like the season front runner for fucking directors and producers and all this other shit, apparently just came out and was talking about a lot of the issues that he had on The Walking Dead. He sent out a lot of fucking crazy emails under a lot of stress and extraordinary crisis, as he calls it. I'm going to read a few of these things.
I love when people lose their shit.
It is fucking gold. And guys, keep in mind, first of all, like when you make a movie or do anything as stressful as something like a movie, you're gonna fucking argue. You're gonna say shit that you don't mean. It's because you have this unbridled passion for whatever it is that you're doing. And when shit doesn't work out, you fucking fly off the handle because it means that much to you.
Absolutely.
So take this with a grain of salt, enjoy it for what it is, and know that Frank Darabont is owning up to it. So there's no reason to SJW his ass into the fucking oblivion. Because if you guys didn't know, he got fired from The Walking Dead. And it's been this like bitter thing, and they've really talked about it. Frank Darabont says, I will start killing people and throwing bodies out the door. Fuck. Are you reading some of these right now? Yeah. Darabont, who co-created the blockbuster cable hit The Walking Dead, was fired as a showrunner from the series early in its second season, so he didn't even get to star in or do anything with the second season. He and his CAA team are suing AMC, claiming the network squeezed him out of tens of millions of dollars in profits by negotiating a sweetheart licensing deal with itself. In its defense, AMC has released a cache of shocking emails by the Shawshank Redemption writer-director and misdirector, which is pretty crazy. First of all, if you read through these, some of these are pretty funny in my opinion. They're trying to leak it to fucking basically win the court case against Frank Darabont, which it's like, dude, like anybody.
Oh, this is damning fucking shit.
It is pretty damning.
It's damning.
But anybody that works on a set knows that not everything's peaches and cream.
He's not wrong.
No. The failings of the show, writing staff and crew, and in particular the camera operators, are a repeated theme on these rants. So in the email, he singles out a pair of writers as fucking lazy assholes and overpaid con artists, he calls, quote, unquote.
Oh my God.
And receiving what he felt was woefully a subpar script from a pair of writers, Darabont tells the execs, quote, if it were up to me, I'd have not only fired them, I'd hunted them down and fucking killed them with a brick, then gone and burned down their fucking houses. Well, actually, I paraphrase that. And burned down their homes, is what he said. End quote. Then he says, quote, I told those assholes at least a half a dozen times, why don't they listen when I tell them to the way to do it? It's in one ear and out the other. It's almost as if they're intentionally telling me to fuck myself. Like I'm reading this like how I would think he would say it. End quote. But it gets a lot more heated, but telling somebody that you're going to bust a brick on their head and burn down their
yeah, that's a little far.
When I fucking read this shit, I was fucking losing it.
I love how he ends this. He sends this the group another email the next day after this one that's like just ripping them fucking apart, and he was pissed off. Calmly explains his fucking boiling rage state, and it's fantastic.
What is he? Oh, go ahead.
It says, I'm in a state of absolute boiling rage right now. It begins. I have never been a screamer, but I am now. You've turned me into a raging asshole. Thanks a lot, you fuckers. Fabulous. And I get it because he's just completely pissed off. Like there's this whole section about how he's like screaming at them to pay attention to his fucking scripts. How he even chooses his commas for a reason. And he's talking about how they're basically just completely avoiding his direction and his script direction of how he wants this shot filmed or how he wants this shot perceived. And they're completely like skipping over it, and then he's hearing people going, "Oh, this is a great fucking shot," and he's like, "Are you fucking blind?"
Well, yeah, and he was telling the cameraman like, "This is not a shaky cam.
Why are you
fucking instant? We're not. This is an action thing. It's like a still fucking shot. Mm-hmm. You don't need to do this." And they were like they weren't doing what he was saying, so he was getting more and more heated because these people are on a timeline.
Absolutely,
they gotta fucking get this shit done. And I'm not trying to excuse his behavior,
not at all.
But I'm trying to say, like, I understand. Like, I've been in some pretty passionate situations, writing music, doing the podcast, whatever it may be, and shit happens. And it's not a personal thing. It's a passion thing.
But from a creative standpoint, when it's something that is your fucking job to plot this out and plan this out.
Listen to the director.
He plans his commas for a fucking reason, which is essentially a pause.
Right.
And it's not being followed. That's
it's wasting money.
Irritating.
Yeah.
It's why is he doing this? Why is he here? Why is he wasting all of his time? Why is he wasting his money or their money essentially to do this when they're not going to listen to his direction?
Right.
You know,
I mean, I
get it. And not excusing it. I'm not condoning his fucking behavior by any means, but because, telling people you're going to hunt them down, kill them with a brick and burn their houses. That's a lot. But I mean, I've said some fucking shit.
I have too, but you have to be careful when in a work environment.
And especially now, because everything's on fucking text form or recorded form, and that shit can come back and bite you in the fucking ass.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to use it against them. That's
for sure.
They want to win that court case.
And they will.
Probably. I mean, they got so much money. They got so many great lawyers,
They can afford...
But I've always wondered what happened with that whole fucking The Walking Dead thing, because every time anybody asks him about it, he's like, I don't want to fucking talk about it. Like, he's like angry. And I guess we know now.
I'm fucking pissed.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for the news. All right, guys. So now it's time for us to delve deep into the flesh,
balls deep,
and potatoes of cannibals. In the
Cannibal Inferno.
Right now. Guys, so we're back and we're going to jump into the flesh and potatoes of Cannibal Inferno, 2 cannibal movies of many cannibal movies that are something that Brittany picked, actually.
Yes.
Which we were literally going to pick right before, and it's so funny that she picked it. But we're going to be talking about Green Inferno by Eli Roth, and we're also going to be talking about the infamous Cannibal Holocaust, otherwise known as Kill Dead Animals, or Kill Animals Dead.
Pretty much. Otherwise known as Heartbreak fucking City.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
It's the worst.
But first, we're going to go ahead and kick it off. And guys, by the way, this episode's going to be a little extra long, so we can give you a little extra for the week. So if you need to pause it or something like that and come back, we totally understand. That's why we're making this one a little bit longer. Plus, we can't shut the fuck up, so it works out. Because it's a special week.
It's a special week.
But we'll go ahead and we'll kick it off with the first movie, which is Eli Roth's Green Inferno. And that one came out in 2013. Now, the story is a group of student activists travels to the Amazon to save the rainforest and soon discover that they are not alone and that no good deed goes unpunished. Ooh.
Such a fucking whiny millennial way to explain a fucking story.
Well, it is a very millennial movie.
Absolutely. Yeah. It absolutely was.
It really was. Like,
he really tried to take like what was prevalent in that time frame and like really like
fuck our face with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and it worked and it didn't work.
It was a little overwhelming at times.
It was overwhelming.
But director Eli Roth comes back. If you have not heard of Eli Roth, he did Cabin Fever, which blew up into many other films that he did. Another movie that he did was he's done a lot of different ones. Hostel, he's done. That was a big one.
I feel like Hostel's probably his biggest film.
Probably.
As far as directing standpoint.
It's like
is
Saw.
Most known for.
Yeah. And then he did Aftershock. He did Knock Knock, I believe.
He did.
Yeah. And quite a few others. But you probably already know who he is. He also helped write this story with his buddy, Guillermo Amoedo. I believe I'm saying his name right, but it could be Amoedo. I don't know. But Amoedo, who worked on Knock Knock with him and Aftershock, which was the earthquake horror movie, as well with Eli. So they both worked together on a lot of shit. It stars Lorenza Isso, who she was in Knock Knock.
Mhm.
And I was like, when I was watching the movie, I was like, God, I fucking know her. Like, how do I know her from? What is she from? And then I realized, oh, she's in Knock Knock. She was one of the fucking chicks that was like raping and setting him up.
Yeah.
To be a fucking...
Did she star in Aftershock also?
Yeah, she was in Aftershock as well. And she did a movie called Sex Ed, which was kind of like a comedy.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I feel like that's in my Netflix queue.
And then the leader of the sort of group is Ariel Levy, who he was in a lot of like Hispanic or Spanish speaking films. He was in the movie The Stranger, which was kind of like a vampire movie. It's kind of interesting. I didn't mind. It was an independent flick. Also, it stars, and I'm just going to name off the top 3 that like really stuck out for me. And that is Daryl Sabara, who he was like the white looking kid that was in Machete, who was like Hispanic, but they all called him like white boy or some shit like that.
Yeah. And then, oh my God, what's his name? Is in it too. He's in Spy Kids. He's the little boy in the Spy Kids.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. I never watched those.
The curly blonde hair kid.
That's a Robert Rodriguez film too.
Ripped into pieces.
Right?
He's the one that gets attacked, by the whole mob of the cannibals.
Oh.
That's the kid from Spy Kids.
That's Daryl Sabara, right?
Is that him?
Yeah.
I'm so
He's
terrible
the red-haired
with
kid,
actors.
right?
Yeah, it's like a reddish, blondish, like curly hair.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
I always remembered him from Machete.
Oh, you're right.
Because he was the kid that worked in the shop that was friends with the girl that was like, didn't have the papers.
Mm.
And then they had the taco shop that was like right outside or whatever.
Yeah, just my niece and nephew were like super into Spy Kids. So when I watched the movie, I was
That's
like, that's
crazy.
The fucking kid from Spy Kids. What the fuck?
He was really recognizable. I thought he was decent in the movie. He played kind of a, I don't know. He didnn't play the Machete style character, that's for sure. And he was also in Halloween, the remake.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently. And I
don't remember that.
I don't remember him in there either. I haven't seen it in a while, so I'd probably have to watch it. I'll be like, oh, there he is.
Which is, I'm totally okay with rehashing that shit.
A lot of the characters that were in this movie, though, were in the movie Aftershock, which came out in 2012 as well, right before this one. And it was basically co-written by Eli Roth as well. So now this movie had a budget of about $5 million and it made $12.7 million at the box office, which is pretty impressive. I didn't think it would have made that much.
Right.
I mean, it's not as good as it maybe hoped it would be.
Do you personally feel that the delay in the release of this film hurt or helped?
I think it helped.
I think it hurt it.
I think it helped. I'm surprised that it did as well as it did.
I honestly think that the delay in the film hurt it more than it helped it.
Maybe.
Because once they found out the reality behind why the film was actually delayed by being released, it kind of killed the buzz a little bit about it. And I know personally for me, I'd already been waiting for almost a year, maybe longer, for this film to be released. And then it gets pushed back another 6 months to a year before it's actually released. And I'm just...
Which is like the death curse.
By the time it came out, I'm fucking over it.
Right.
I don't care anymore at this point. And then I waited another couple months after it was released to actually watch it. I was excited to see this new take on it, but with the
who else would have done it
that we're in now, and the point that we're in now, and see where they could take the story and elevate it and then take the effects to a new level. And it's not a remake by any means of Cannibal Holocaust. It's just very, very severely derived from that story point. Mm-hmm. And they kind of take it in a little bit of a different direction, but it's essentially the same movie.
Yeah, it is. It is. Definitely is. I've got some thoughts on it, but do you want to go first?
Let's
or do you
hear
want
them.
me?
No, I want you to go first.
All right.
Lead the way, sir.
So I tried to write quite a few of these things down, but in my opinion, the movie is fucking stupid silly. It's like...
Absolutely agree.
It's like it was trying to be shocking, but it ended up farting instead.
Which is how Hostel 2 was for me.
Kind of. I think Hostel 2 is probably more believable.
No, I don't think
acting wise, direction wise. But this one, I don't know. I wasn't even sure whether or not it was intentional or not that I was supposed to be laughing.
There are too many parts that were just thrown in there that I felt were unnecessary.
It just didn't feel right. It felt synthetic.
Yeah, it felt forced, and it felt obviously like this was like a last minute written decision into the script, and it felt like they're reaching for something to tie the audience back into the story because they felt like the audience is getting lost. And so they're like, oh, let's throw in a stupid joke about a chick shitting herself in this fucking cage.
Yeah, because that's the fucking alchemy that you need to do.
We can't get past fucking fart and shit jokes. As a society, we can't get past it. And as I've said previously, if you don't find farts hilarious, you can't be trusted.
Well, and that's the thing. It took 40 fucking minutes to get
to the flesh
all
and
the way. Yeah,
potatoes
it really
of the
did.
movie.
And there was a lot of really cringy fucking like, oh, we're doing this for the good of whatever. And like some of the dialogue between the main leader and her were really cringy.
The scene is pretty intense as far as like, you know, when she's almost killed for the sake of her cause.
Right.
Essentially. And that scene is actually pretty brilliantly filmed.
Oh, it's a great idea. It's good on paper.
Absolutely. It's a very intense scene. And however, I felt like it fell flat.
Like I think it was necessary, the steps that they took, but it wasn't executed well.
Absolutely.
That's what I felt like.
The movie, like
it made sense what they were doing. Like they totally needed to do what they did.
Right.
And it was tolerable, but it was done in like a shitty way.
Absolutely. It felt like a shitty frat film. I don't know. The first 45 minutes of it is just this stupid way to kind of explain how they got to where they were. And I felt like they could have summed that up very quickly.
Right.
When you look at other films that go along the same type of a storyline, they get to that point quickly in the story for the most part.
I was a little surprised that it took us 40 minutes to get into it.
That's a long fucking time.
And it makes sense in a way because the movie is like an hour and a half or whatever, you know, and so they were trying to do two parts like Cannibal Holocaust. So they were trying to pay a little bit of an homage to that, and I kind of like that they tried to build characters a little bit. But it just felt so synthetic. It didn't feel right.
Nothing felt realistic about it, and it was too forced.
And then when it finally gets there, I fucking seriously laughed out loud so many fucking times. And one of the biggest infractions of this sort of homage, nobody was naked, which is a serious bone killer right there.
Well, especially in comparison to the other movie, you know, if you're looking at the two together, there's...
Anybody that got hard off the first movie, you're fucked up.
But I mean, well, there is a consensual fucking sex scene.
Like, there's nothing like attractive to the situation, though.
No.
Like, I that's why I make the joke, because it's like there's no nudity, or I wasn't like, ooh, yeah.
For an Eli Roth film, I was a little bit surprised.
Yeah.
In that aspect. I'm like, okay, so, I mean, I was actually appreciative, because it's one of the things that I guess it's as a woman,
mm-hmm.
They put too much emphasis into the nudity of a female body.
In the first one, or
just in horror movies in general.
Oh yeah,
and I feel like they put too much focus into that. And then there's always these gratuitous fucking rape scenes and all this shit that I feel is completely unnecessary a lot of times to a story. So I did kind of appreciate that, I guess, a little bit with this. But in what they're trying to pay respects to, essentially, with making this movie, I was just like,
Well, I mean, and I don't want to get too much into comparisons till the end, but compared to this movie was based off of, Green Inferno was supposed to be an amalgamation of all the cannibal movies back in that time, because
in the 80s and 90s.
I think it was like a 2-year span, and there was like 2-3 year span, there was like 5 fucking cannibal movies all of a sudden. It was like hot new thing.
1980 you had Cannibal Holocaust, and then immediately after 1981 you had,
and then
Cannibal Pharaoh, or what is it? Let Them Die Slowly.
Jungle Holocaust was like 77. Eaten Alive was like 79.
It was within a span of 5 to 6 years is when all these movies just fucking exploded.
Right.
You know, and then they had several quote unquote sequels.
Right. Yeah.
You know, that came out afterwards that are all unofficial.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and they weren't like.
It was just it was a very big thing in that time frame.
Well, I think the thing that really caught me off guard about this movie in particular is that the acting kind of bothered me for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of ridiculous, and some of the scenes that should have like impacted me in like a moment kind of made me just like crack up.
Absolutely.
And so it kind of like took me out of it. Like, whereas like the movie that it's predominantly basing itself off of was a little bit more serious.
Absolutely. This is a consistent issue that I run into with Eli Roth films, though.
Right. Yeah.
Is that it? And I understand where he's coming from, because in a sense this appeals to more people, for a mass audience to come in to view his movies, if he throws in this little bit of a like comedic relief.
It's like, thank God I can just laugh.
A lot of people just can't handle, and his movies are gratuitous violence. It's gratuitous gore. It's a lot for people to handle. And I feel like, even though we are a completely desensitized society these days, where, you know, we look at films like Cannibal Holocaust now and go, that's fucking ridiculous. There's nothing even violent about this in certain scenes.
Sure.
And then you take Green Inferno and you compare the two and you just the kill scenes of the humans in the comparison and you go, that's night and day difference.
You know what I think it is for me is that we haven't done this together yet, but we do the grave plots.
Next week.
And next week we're going to be doing grave plots. But it's like...
Be nice to me my first time doing that, guys.
He has like really cool parts that he writes down on paper. Mm-hmm. But the pieces that fit them together, like the subtle nuance and the subtle, like, believable sort of feel to it in between those cool moments are really shit.
Right.
And I hate to say it like
brain.
that. It feels like it doesn't tie it together really well. And I'm not saying that all of his movies are like that, but a lot of them really struggle in that area. Like sometimes he lands it like lucky.
Lands
yeah.
it.
But sometimes, most of the time, it's like 80% of the time you're just like, oh, thank God something else happened. Like, we're on to the next part.
Right. And another interesting point that you and I were actually discussing was how surprised we were that this film was as well received as it was among a lot of people. And I felt like when this movie was first released, I felt like I experienced more of a negative viewpoint.
Right.
On the film. And I viewed it in a negative way also. But I didn't pay attention to any reviews or anything from any other people, outside sources, before I watched it myself.
Neither
and then after
I
watched it myself, formulated my own opinion, and then went and looked at other reviews that people did, and was finding myself agreeing with a lot of the things people were saying. I would come, it was a common agreement among every reviewer for the same things, and then issues among the same issues as well. And now going back again, researching it before we did, our episode here, I'm finding some more positive reviews and I'm scratching my head going, why did this change?
Yeah, it is weird. It's kind of like...
And why did this change? Because I don't view it any differently now versus when I first saw it, when it came out in 2013.
I think as a whole, it's not a great movie.
No.
It's an okay movie.
It's a great idea, just not executed well.
Yeah, there's some cool beats that they hit that I'm like, oh yeah. But there was a lot of shit in between that just made it go, what? Like, and then I was like laughing, and then I was like, oh my God, they did not do that.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to spoil it for you guys. We try to save some of the spoilers for the end, and maybe some of the trivia a little bit, but
I felt like they opened too strongly with the interaction with the cannibal tribe and the quote unquote victims. I felt like they opened too strongly with that first scene of the interaction between them all together.
Right.
And they jumped the shark, essentially.
Yeah. You know what that term comes from, by the way?
I've heard a couple
just
of
read
stories.
about this. This is so funny. Happy Days. Do you remember that show?
Yeah.
Well, Fonzie jumps a shark in Happy Days. And that's why they call it jumping the shark.
That makes sense. And
Isn't that crazy?
It's a great comparison to use for when movies or film do that.
I love shit like that. Like, I'm like, why do we say the things that we do, but it all makes sense?
Hang on, how did this analogy come to be?
But yeah, like, I really feel like as a whole, this movie's kind of lacking in a lot of ways. There are really good parts to it. Mm-hmm. Pretty much like a 5 or a 6 for me, for the most part. There's some really cool stuff in it that really blows it up, but everything getting to those points is so cringy.
It takes too long to build to what everybody is tuning in for, which is the scenes and the interaction between them and this quote-unquote cannibalistic tribe that they're supposed to be dealing with.
Right.
And it's a 45-minute process into building up to that point. By the time you get there, you're just exhausted in this bullshit that they're spieling out to you to be able to be interested in the story.
And it's so preachy sometimes.
Extremely. And then they start off with this bang fucking scene. And then you're like, holy fuck. Like, that just set a fucking tone. Like, that was insanely fantastic. And they never match it.
But even still, even in those, like, that moment where it kicks in, it some of those moments felt like I got pulled out of it a little bit.
All right. Oh, yeah.
One, I didn't give a fuck about the characters so much.
Absolutely not.
The main girl was probably the best.
He was probably the worst one for them to pick. I understand why they picked him,
Right.
Because of his size and sheer body mass for the character. So it kind of plays to this whole thing to them of where they're going to keep them alive and torment them for a while longer because he's going to feed the tribe for a longer period of time than they will.
Right.
So this is why they
it all
symbiotically
makes sense.
choose him.
Yeah.
I understand exactly what the story they're trying to portray or what they're trying to do at that point, but I feel like if they would have picked one of the women first,
like the girl, the new one,
to do that with, or like the vegan girl or whatever,
right?
It probably would have had a little bit of a stronger impact to the audience. If you look at any type of a horror film or anything that tries to take this kind of aspect, you're going to get more of a severe response if you kill a chick, especially in such a violent fashion. If you take a woman and you do that to her,
right,
it's going to set a completely different tone for a film versus if you just take the fatter guy out of the group and you're just like, oh, let's just fucking kill this guy who has no fucking presence at all. It's completely he's a little bit relatable, I guess, because you can see him as being like your friend.
The one that's in love with the main girl.
Yeah, they take the first one that they sacrifice essentially. And it's like that whole beautiful scene with like the lead female, like the quote unquote, I guess, like witch doctor-esque woman.
Right.
Of the tribe who, speaking from a makeup standpoint of this film.
And that's another thing.
Holy fuck.
Right. Like there's some really cool, unique style that they put into it. Incredible. I thought it was really awesome. Like something that the other one didn't have. I don't know that it necessarily needed it, but it was still very cool to look at. It made the characters stronger on the tribe side.
It didn't necessarily need it. And I feel like it made it a little bit more stereotypical.
Kind of.
To how we as
perceive it.
Americans perceive these people to look.
Right.
And I can see why indigenous people or people who study indigenous people took such an issue with this film.
Right.
And how they perceive them, especially since there are no active cannibalistic tribes
anymore, supposedly,
or at least that are documented within the region that they filmed. As far as history reports, at least in that region, there are no cannibalistic tribes that are reported.
If there were cannibals or anything like that, I don't think it's like all they did is exclusively eat people. I think it was more of like, hey, this is a necessity.
It was a necessity.
Or was like, hey, this is how we like fight off the evil spirits.
It was strictly religious practice.
Right, yeah.
It was in order to, there are different reasonings behind it, in order to bring good crops for the season for them, or to bring a good hunting season for them.
Something, yeah.
It's a blood sacrifice that they would pay to their gods, respectively, in order to gain favor from them.
Right.
That's the exact
and they didn't want to be
wasteful. Exactly. And they use everything.
Right.
You know, everything that they would consume. It's just like a hunter. You know, if you go out and you hunt, and respectable hunters go out there and hunt, and they use every single piece of what they kill.
Well, just like the natives.
Absolutely.
Natives will be very, very...
That's what they would do. That you have to survive the best way that you can. So you have
respect
to use
life enough
everything.
to be able to give it that sort of care.
And I feel like just like there's so many undocumented species of animal in this world, there are many undocumented species of man.
Probably.
In this world. I feel like there are so many, just this tribe that Eli Roth discovered, this Peruvian tribe. That he came across that is, they don't have running water, they don't have fucking electricity, they have nothing.
Right.
You know, and these people that he came across that supposedly, according to all the records, have never been documented, never been filmed, never been photographed ever until he came across them.
Right, which he was probably tickled pink about.
How many more tribes are there? You know, I want to believe that that's entirely true. Do I? Part of me doesn't.
Yeah.
However,
it might be just like bullshit. Just
it could be bullshit to boost up the fucking story. It's not like that hasn't been done before. Cannibal Holocaust. You know, there was a lot that went into that as well. But
that made more sense though. But like, I would not expect that in this day and age.
In this day and age, right?
There is some pretty interesting stuff about this movie though, behind the scene, that I was not expecting. They didn't even know that these people existed. In order to better acquaint these tribes people with what a film was, they brought a TV out with the movie Cannibal Holocaust to let them watch it so that they could know what they were trying to do and have them as actors. Right. And they absolutely fucking loved it. And they thought that it was a comedy.
The interesting fact behind that is, in order for Roth to gain permission from the village to film them, he had to actually explain the entire concept of a film or a movie to them, broke out these generators, broke out this fucking shit box TV, and I'm pretty sure it was a VHS.
Probably.
And showed them Cannibal Holocaust, and his his reports of their reception to the film were insane to me because they all viewed this as a comedy. They think it's the most hilarious shit they've ever seen.
Which is appalling to everybody else.
To all of us, we're just like, oh, fuck. Like, I mean, to me, I'm like, haha, I get it. Like, now I watch that film and I'm like, this is funny. You know, aside from certain aspects of it, I'm just like, this is stupid.
It's like untouched country or
absolutely untouched territory. It's just, it's new, you know, and for them to think that to watch this movie and be laughing hysterically and think this is a comedy, you know, but that's what signed them up. Almost every single person in that tribe signed up to be in the film.
Yeah, they were camera crew.
In the film, they helped on the crew.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's like the entire village. The entire village was all a part of it. They were. This was the hottest thing since Gibby Blub Blub was like found that fucking huge fish out in the fucking. I'm just kidding. Like I just imagine that they're like, you remember when you know what's his name was fucking like he found that fish, dude? That was like a big deal. This is like 50 times bigger, dude. Because you know tribesmen talk like bro. Like
totally,
that.
All day.
One of the funniest things, though, that I got it, like as soon as I read it, I was like fucking delighted in sick fashion, I guess, was that apparently Eli Roth said that the tribe offered a 2-year-old child to the production designer as a sort of thank you.
Yeah, it was
for including them. And the funny thing I even think that even makes that funnier is that they even went further on to say that the production designer politely declined.
Respectfully.
Yeah, it's like, what?
He respectfully
declined. Well, no shit, you fucking weirdo.
This 2-year-old tribe child as a gift for filming this movie.
They're like, what do I do with it?
I'm the asshole sitting here going, I want to adopt a kid for so fucking long. Like, if this tribe wants to be like, take my 2-year-old as an offering, I'd be like, all right, cool.
He's got a weird bob
Let me take your weird fucking 2-year-old. Shape and mold him. Now I don't need to go through the whole process of adopting a child that's virtually fucking impossible.
Well, when you think about somebody handing over a 2-year-old child to a bunch of strangers, you kind of
the custom behind that is a little interesting.
It's like, what is your intentions? I really understand.
I almost feel like their intentions are, please take my child from this setting and help them.
I didn't think about it that way, but
to me, that's
mine went way darker.
A little bit how it feels. I don't know. Like I almost feel like we see what you come from, and we want you to take our child into what you come from, and let them grow and expand.
Right.
Beyond the means of what we're able to provide to them. And if you feel like offering your child,
it's a big deal.
That's a big fucking deal.
Yeah, it's a form of like
that's your seed.
Yeah, that's like a big deal.
I want to give a quick shout out real quick to the practical effects and makeup work that was done by Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger
on Green Inferno.
For Green Inferno.
Yeah.
Because it was most notably the most agreed upon positive review by anyone that actually reviewed and did a decent job of reviewing this film, was how incredible the practical effects and the makeup work was. And that was one very positive note that I came out of this experience with.
Yeah.
The work behind it is absolutely almost flawless.
Right.
But Greg Nicotero is just, and his crew and anyone that he gets behind shit, like I would die to learn from him or work with him.
Fuck yeah, dude. He needs to start his own school, right?
He's that's a school I'd fucking pay for because it wouldn't be bullshit.
Oh, that's the fucking school that you can't go to.
Yeah.
Unless you fall into
I'm going to fucking just stalk the shit out of him one day and be like, just teach me everything. I need to know all the things. Their work on this film is...
It is pretty good.
Fantastic.
There was some moments where I was like,
give me a moment. I want to know. I'm curious.
I don't know. Like, I don't want to ruin it for anybody just yet, but if you guys want to close your ears for like 4 seconds.
Spoiler alert.
Earmuffs.
Earmuffs, kids.
When she gets speared in the head, like the leader's girlfriend, that part just like bothered me.
Just because of the sheer, like, it doesn't feel like it's possible for that to happen?
I don't know. It just didn't feel right.
I feel like
stab her in the neck, stab her in the eye.
We should have got stabbed in the neck.
They could have done it in the eye though, and it would have been a better.
Spear, but I feel like the spear to the head thing, and I agree with you.
It's just weird
because it's a
weird choice.
It feels a little whatever.
If they would have stabbed her in the eye, it would have been so much better.
Yeah, it feels a little. Come on, like, is that even a possible thing? But like I explained earlier, I almost feel like that's what they've trained to do
Right.
for this entire
So they
time is
could
to
be
be
that
spot
powerful.
on, to be able to actually be that powerful, to make that fucking dead on of a shot. And I mean, I feel like it could be a possibility as much as that's their only weapon. So they're gonna be skilled.
Like,
I completely understand and
it
see
just
your
seems
doubt.
a little too over the top
No,
for me.
stupid.
It's like
it was stupid. It was unnecessary.
Yeah, it is
That bitch
unnecessary.
was gonna die anyway.
Yeah.
She got a spear completely through her fucking neck. She's going to die. Her jugular is completely fucking eviscerated. She's not going to survive that kind of a setting whatsoever. So why is there a necessity to the spear through the head? There is not, except for a comedic or
It seems like it was intentionally comedic.
That's what and that's a lot of the issues.
It says it doesn't say it's a comedy though.
That's not something that they take as part of a comedic relief part for that film. That's not a credit part to it, but I feel like that's where they first initiate.
Dude, and when he's like trying to save her life, and then she gets stabbed in the head with a spear. And he's like, no!
Oh no.
No!
Not believable.
I'm like, what?
If that was like, even if I barely knew that person, if I'm tending to this person who just got a spear in the fucking neck, and then all of a sudden I'm trying to comfort her and she gets a spear in the fucking head, my reaction is, oh no, it's gonna be like, what the fuck? Like, I'd be freaking the fuck out, even if I hated that fucking bitch.
No!
I'm still gonna have more compassion than no. Oh no.
Another really funny thing about this thing is that apparently there was Christian missionaries and they were singing religious songs on their boats.
I was hoping you were going to bring this up.
Dude, this shit's fucking hilarious. So as they arrived at the village, they weren't aware that the movie was being filmed at the village and became alarmed when they saw all the gory props and like skeletons and dead bodies
they sang
impaled on stakes. Yeah, so they were like singing louder because they thought that it was going to fight off the evil of the place that they were in.
Silly Christians. You're so
They're like,
silly.
What the fuck did we just walk in on, Jesus?
We're just going to sing louder so Jesus can hear it and correct these sins.
What did you do, Jesus?
Mm-hmm. But then once they went and actually explained to them what was going on, they calmed the fuck down about it.
Right.
Which is almost a little bit disheartening in a sense, because like, as crazy religious as they are, and they're gonna sing louder and louder and louder with more of these props and shit that they're seeing, and then someone comes and explains to them, oh, this is just a movie that we're gonna show to the entire fucking world.
They're like, yeah, you're gonna have to come back next week to save them.
And then they're like, oh, okay. Oh, it's just a movie. Like, that's fine. That's no big deal.
No,
like,
I bet
they're not going to
freaked
protest
out.
that at all, but they don't talk about that. They
probably want to get the fuck out of there, dude.
Oh, I'm sure. And they're like, I don't want to be a fucking extra in your goddamn film. Like,
yeah.
Jesus will not accept me as his Lord.
They're like, we're here to
whatever.
save people, and you guys came here
You're
before
to kill,
us.
To kill people.
Like, we just spent like $1,300 each to get here.
I'm on a mission with my church.
Right.
This is very important. I'm sorry if you're religious out there, but
whatever.
If you're religious, you're probably not listening to the show because.
And you know what's funny? After all this effort and everything like that, and all this like hoopla and advertising and everything,
hoopla. Sorry,
they didn't. The MPAA, the ratings board, didn't even like ask to cut anything.
They almost struggled to still give him an R rating.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which is interesting to me.
That doesn't seem right.
No, but he didn't have to cut anything. Anything from that film.
Which is probably a sad panda moment for him.
That would be a sad panda moment for me as a
Right.
fucking filmmaker, and I'm trying to make this fucking crazy controversial film, and they're just like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah,
I guess you can get an R, but I mean, if you cut this one scene, it could be PG-13.
He was like, fuck, we should have put the anal rape scene. God damn it, I
I'm
should have put
so
that in.
fucking over gratuitous rape scenes. I'm so fucking
Well,
over
it could have been a male one, and it would have made more sense.
Even male, like, I'm so beyond that shit.
But Cannibal Holocaust, that's the reason I say that.
Well, there's one solid gratuitous rape scene
there's
in it.
two.
No, the one scene is, it's between the couple. It's a couple.
No, there's...
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
There's two
You're correct.
because there's...
You're correct.
They find the random
With
girl
the
from the tribe.
Yeah, you're right.
Well,
You're right.
there's three, technically, then.
Well, the one...
Because the girl with that was the
adulteress.
Yeah, the adulteress. Then there's a girl that gets randomly grabbed, and then she gets raped by like all three of the guys. And then there's like another scene where the girl who's with them, she gets
scene.
raped by the tribes people.
Oh,
so there's three rape scenes.
Did she get raped though?
Yeah, she did because
I don't remember her being raped. I just remember her.
No,
being
one of the
in a
tribes
crowd.
members spread her legs, and it was pretty crazy.
You're probably right.
I paid attention because I remember
rape scene 1, and then the agreeable sex scene between the main dude and one of the main dudes and the main chick or whatever.
Right.
Like, there's that agreeable rape that almost looks like rape
Well,
when it starts out, and you get a little confused.
Well,
But
I guess in Green Inferno there was like technically 3 rape scenes too, in a way.
the fucking horn.
Yeah.
Mm.
Which was done by a woman.
Yeah.
Which I guess is a kinder, gentler rape. I don't
No.
like what the fuck.
No. No. I don't give a fuck.
Is that why he did that? So is that why there was a woman?
They do that entirely to determine who's a virgin.
Right.
Among the 3. Their way of trying to determine who was the virgin among the group. So in this sense, I guess it would have paid off to be a whore, essentially, because he wouldn't have been made out for this whole big sacrifice that they essentially prepare her for. But she ends up, it actually pays off to be a fucking virgin in this film because she's the only one that survives.
Yeah.
Well, technically.
You hear that, ladies? You hear that, men? Don't be a whore.
Yeah.
Well, in the tribe, virginity is like a huge thing.
Be a promiscuous bitch. It's fine, ladies.
They admitted in the Cannibal Holocaust as well. After seeing this for the first time for me, like, I've held off because I've heard, I don't remember hearing anything positive about it, to be quite honest. Like, come to find out, Stephen King gave it, like,
oh, he loved it.
Glowing responses. He's tweeted out and he was like a glorious throwback to the drive-in movies of my youth. Bloody, gripping, hard to watch, but you can't look away. And it's like, what? Stephen?
I feel like, did he only watch a compilation of kill scenes?
I don't know.
On YouTube for that film?
That would make more sense, right?
I'm fucking confused as to if we watched the same movie.
Gripping is when the whole movie is entirely gripping. Like, there is no, like, loose gripping. It was almost like everybody, like, the story lost its grip 50 times throughout the movie, and all the little pieces were the gripping moments.
Yeah, it took 45 minutes to build to anything fucking gripping in that film, and then it had you for about 10 fucking minutes, and then it lost you immediately after.
Yeah.
And then it would get you again, and then it would lose you and get you again and lose you. There was no constant hold, you know, and there's so many other films that catch you from beginning to end. I mean,
grabs you.
One of the biggest ones I could think of more recent film is like The Revenant.
Okay.
Gets you from the fucking beginning and holds you to the fucking end.
I saw it in the theater.
I've seen some people recently that I've actually have given it bad reviews, and I don't understand why.
Let me ask you this. What is your favorite scenes?
Okay.
Maybe not even favorite scenes. Maybe we just call it like laughable moments or, you know, whatever it is.
The opening scene, as I've discussed a little bit as far as their introduction with the tribe when they sacrifice the one main, the quote unquote fat dude.
Yes.
He's not even fat.
He's not even fat, yeah.
No, but he's
just a bigger guy. That
scene is cinematically fucking beautiful.
Right.
It is absolutely in the
it's
primitive.
Long.
It is very long.
Yeah.
And he is alive far longer than he actually would be in real life.
He would be passed out from pain.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I kept thinking. I'm like, he's going to be out.
They chop off his arm because they gouge his eyes first, and they cut
that would have passed him out right there.
They cut his tongue out. No, I can still see him being coherent from the eye gouging and the tongue cutting out, but as soon as they cut off his first arm, he'd be out.
Yeah, that's too much pain.
That's too much. Your body would be in complete fucking shock by that point. But the human body is an incredible machine.
Right. But however, it is a good moment. It is
fantastic.
it is probably one of the more shining moments in the whole fucking film.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
If you look at that and just the beauty that's behind that entire scene and how that's filmed is great. However, I almost feel, and I'm not going to talk about the scene that I actually really, really love because I feel like it's going to spoil a pretty decent part for people who haven't seen it.
And just save it for the end. For the end of this part.
Really love the first scene, the first dissection, and essentially like offering that they make. Love that scene to fucking death. Still feel like they opened too fucking hard with that. I felt like they should have saved that a little bit towards the end-ish.
Right.
But love the scene with the vegan. Not the shitting, the shitting the cage scene, but the scene where she smashes the bowl down on the ground
and cuts her throat.
And cuts her fucking throat.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, sorry if we spoiled this.
Stupid. But then they ruined it.
Yeah, they kind of make it
then
stupid.
They fucking ruin it, and it pisses me off because that was such a great fucking stance for that chick to make, and I loved it.
I thought about that too.
It was like, such a power play.
That's probably like the right thing to do.
It was such a fucking power play. She just realizes that she ate her fucking friend, and she's not okay with it, and that was a big fucking fucking power play and a big fuck you to all these people that are holding her captive.
Yeah.
She breaks that fucking dish and slits her own throat, and she knows she's gonna fucking die. And she was an annoying fucking character.
Yeah, she kind of was.
Absolutely annoying. Like, she was actually one of the only believable characters until they did the whole shitting the cage scene, and then it fucking ruined it with her.
Right. Made
And
it
then
comical.
it brought it back around with that whole thing, and I was like, fuck yeah.
Are you talking about, like, directly what happens after that?
With the ants?
No, with the guy jerking off.
Oh, yeah.
He's, like, jerking off that she's dead.
Yeah.
And he's like,
no,
oh,
I'm talking about the stuffing.
stress, it'll help the stress.
No, I'm talking about stuffing the weed in her
Oh,
throat
God.
to get the tribe high.
Cringe alert.
I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, they're like, okay, first of all, like, I'm okay. Like, I'm like, oh, God, that's what they're going to do. I was like, okay, I can kind of get around that idea, maybe that it will, but it would never be. It would have to been like an ounce and a half of fucking pot.
But they fucking
not a
play
fucking
it off
quarter.
like it works.
Yeah, and then they play it off like it works. And I'm like, okay, I can deal with that. But instead of just cutting it off at bad idea, they decide to go for horrible idea.
Oh, God, I
like
can't
cringeworthy,
even.
like, what the fuck? Is this a joke? Like, oh, he's got munchies. Like, oh, they're really high.
Stupid.
And then they start eating him, and he's like, oh my God, they've got munchies. And it's like, oh my God, you did not just do that. Did you? Did you just do that? Like, you really just did that, huh?
So fucking ridiculous. I can't.
Like, sorry, guys. Like, if you liked the movie, I'm sorry. But just for me, that was the cheese dickest moment
I want to know why you
of
liked
the movie.
it. If you did like the film, I want to know why, and I want to know specific reasoning and pinpoint facts as to why you like it.
It's never going to make sense for us.
So comment on it.
It's not going to.
And if you like that part, I want to know why the fuck you resonate with that part of the film, because I want to understand your psychology behind it, because I felt like it was so absolutely fucking unnecessary.
It was the worst part of the movie.
Just like the fucking diarrhea, I feel sick, cage shitting scene.
That was bad.
Why was that fucking necessary?
It was just, yeah.
The only parts of any of the quote-unquote comedic relief of that film that I kind of understood that was like still tied into the story, it was a little bit kind of funny, was the little kid running away with the full fucking leg, still with the boot attached to it. Yeah. After they rip that guy to fucking pieces, and the little kid runs out of the crowd with the fucking leg and the boot. That was funny, but it was like a subtle funny.
Yeah, it wasn't like in your face, you should laugh.
It wasn't
now.
In your face, like laugh track fucking like,
yeah,
ha 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 ha, like this is funny, this chick's shitting herself in this cage, or this guy's jacking off, or whatever. It like that was a like genuine flowing comedic relief point
right
in that film that I felt like flowed very, very well with it, while the others were very forced.
Well, one of the guys, the Sabaro guy, where he gets torn apart a little bit, and that was kind of cool. Cool. I still think the best part is where the big guy gets torn apart on the slab. The
first introductory scene.
That's the best thing about it. That's the best
cinematically. That is the best scene. It's the most visceral, and it's the most beautiful.
Another funny moment that was supposed to hit like, oh my God, all the shit's broken loose, is when they leave the plane and a bunch of things happen. After the girl gets stabbed in the head, like the girl falls out of the tree in the fucking seat, and she's like,
I'm sorry, but I love when the dude runs into the fucking propeller.
Oh, that was funny. He was like,
but that
hold on, let me help.
That felt so fucking intentional to me, though. Like, if you watch that without sound to it, it looks like he's like, fuck this, and just runs into the propeller, right. Which felt more,
I'm done,
which feels more organic to me, because in that situation, I'm putting myself there. I'm going, I'm probably going to die here anyway, so I'm going to control my own fucking death. Sure, I'm going to run into this goddamn propeller and kill myself. I'm not going to let some motherfuckers, like, rape the fuck out of me.
It wasn't supposed to be intentional,
cut me up. No, but it appears that way.
Right.
And the shit fucking dialogue they throw on top of that makes it even fucking worse.
Yeah, well, in the like CGI that they did on his head was a little weird.
So bad.
It didn't look real. Like, it looked like, oh, they just painted on his head.
The only part, the actual crash scene leading up into the crash scene, was actually very, very beautifully filmed.
Yeah, when they spin
it was done very well, especially when the fat guy, quote unquote fat guy, that gets ritualistically slaughtered a little bit later in the film, pukes.
Oh yeah, and he gets it all up his eye.
It's like slow motion, beautifully fucking filmed.
I thought it was okay. Yeah,
that scene is fantastic up until the point where it gets very oh my God, what are those films? The fucking plane crash.
Oh, Final Destination.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm correct, right? The first film's
the
plane crash. Yeah. No, Final Destination. It's a very Final Destination-esque moment. in the plane crash scene, where it's so perfectly done, and the people being sucked out in the back when the back part of the plane kind of breaks off.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
Like, that's cool. That's legit. And then all of a sudden it turns Final Destination with this big fucking tree branch coming through and taking out the fucking one of the pilots. And
his face. Yeah. They didn't even show his face after it, really.
It was shitty. It
was like
shitty.
Cool at first, and then it was like, well, show more.
I'm like, well, that was lame. Yeah, I'm like, okay, so it was just this really fast, like...
There were some of the things that they did in this movie that were supposed to be like other movies, like part from Jungle Holocaust, part from like Eaten Alive, part from fucking Cannibal Pharaoh, part from fucking Cannibal Holocaust. And I think it's probably a good segue right now, just to jump right into the Cannibal Holocaust part. Cannibal Holocaust came out in 1980 on the dot. This story goes, during a rescue mission into the Amazon rainforest, a professor stumbles across a lost film shot by a missing documentary crew. And that's not actually really the story. He legitimately goes out there to seek these documentary crew that's supposed to bring this film back to them. And he has to go through all these like paths and beats that all these documentary crew went through of these cannibals and stuff. And he actually gets into the belly of the fucking beast, so to speak, and brings the films back. But what he finds on this film is pretty fucking appalling to him.
And he has to convince these like Hollywood producers or whatever not to actually create and show this quote unquote documentary.
Which is like two movies. It's like two different movies. It's interesting. But this movie was directed by Ruggero Deodato. Previously, like I said, he did the Jungle Holocaust in 1977. He did House on the Edge of the Park, Body Count. There's a movie that I have not seen that I really want to see. It's called Profane Exhibit.
I haven't seen that either.
I have a poster Christina got from one of the fucking conventions, the San Diego Comic-Con? San Diego Comic-Con. Anyway, I want to really see that. But this is part 2, technically, of Cannibal Holocaust. It's actually part 2 of the Cannibal trilogy for Deodato. The first one's Jungle Holocaust. The second one's Cannibal Holocaust. And the third one actually takes place with some hillbillies that go out to Colombia again. Called Cut and Run.
Those hillbillies in Colombia.
Right. And also, the writer for this movie is Gianfranco Clerici. The New York Ripper, he did the movie there. He wrote that. He did Murder Rock, The Bloodstained Butterfly, Don't Torture a Duckling, Nazis, Love Camp 27.
Excellent.
And The House of Clocks, which I never knew it was a TV movie. It's a Lucio Fulci film. But he did a lot more, too.
It's a TV movie?
Yeah, I didn't know that either. And it's a really... If you're into Lucio Fulci just for gore, it's not a good movie.
Right.
But if you're into just like a really cool story, I like The House of Clocks. It's good. This stars Robert Kerman, Francesca Ciardi, Perry Perkanen, and the music was done by Riz Ortolani. Now, to give you guys kind of an idea about Robert Kerman, who is the main star, he's like the professor in the movie. He does pretty much 70% of the movie.
Pretty much.
He was in the movie Eaten Alive, which is another cannibal movie. He was in this one, Cannibal Holocaust. He was in Cannibal Pharaoh. He's done an insane amount of movies. He's done over 186 movies. He's like 69 years of age right now. And a lot of that movies that he did, the 186 films, were actually porn. So there was literally years I was looking through his catalog, and it was like 30 fucking films, probably porn.
Right.
That he did each year. It just blows my mind. He actually, so he started in porn when he first started. He started to become kind of famous and went legit. And then he went back to porn when it dried up a little bit.
He thought that this was kind of going to be a breakthrough film moment for him, to kind of break away from the porn aspect. And then all the controversy that was hit with this film, his legitimate roles dried up very, very quickly. And
Maybe,
so went right back to porn.
Well, he's done some more legitimate ones, but ultimately he did go back to porn. But unknown fact, or sort of known fact, his parents were pickle makers. So, you know.
Pickle makers. Pickles are delicious.
They know a thing or two about a dill pickle.
They know a thing about a dill pickle and making that some rigid shit.
I don't know what the budget is that they spent on this movie, but I think it was like...
In the 80s, I feel like it was very low.
It was very low. And this movie made approximately, overall, everything said and done, after all the trials and tribulations that they went through, it's said that they've made over $200 million in profits from this movie.
Which makes sense because it took a little while for it to gain steam.
Right. And I think it made like $5 million the first 10 days in the US box office. Japan was one of the biggest. Actually, there's 2 movies in Japan that have been the biggest movies ever in Japan. And Cannibal Holocaust is number two. And we're talking about back in the 80s, guys.
But it's Japan, though.
And it's Japan.
With no fucking filter.
$15 million, I think, were made at the box office that first week before it got pulled. And it's literally competing with E.T. Mm-hmm. That is the only other movie that's ever been...
The extraterrestrial,
Yeah,
guys.
like, what the...
fucking T.
Dude, like, first
Cannibal
of all...
Holocaust is second to E.T.
This movie's, like, chock full of a little bit of animal murder, and it's pretty brutal in that sense.
It's a whole lot of fucking animal murder.
Japan, I don't think, has any laws. It's, like, one of the only places that has no laws against animal murder for film. But yeah, it was more successful in Japan. They like loved this fucking movie.
Which makes sense if you look at their film background and like the films that have made it big in Japan. I can see.
I'm big in Japan.
I'm huge in Japan.
Well, what did you think of this film? I went first last time, so what do you think?
When I was first exposed to Cannibal Holocaust, I felt like such a little badass because I was born in 1990.
Okay.
You know, this film came out in 1980. It's been a thing for a while.
Yeah.
You know, so I felt like this total fucking badass when I was 13 years old.
Yeah.
You know, finding out about this film and being able to watch it because my friend had a fucking copy on VHS. And it was like the coolest fucking thing ever because it was supposedly banned in so many countries.
Right.
And this completely unspeakable film. And it was so horrible and so violent and so blah, 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 whatever.
Like, I watched it.
I think I was 12. The first time I watched it. I don't even think I was 13.
That's pretty fucking young.
And my friend was like, oh, I've got this you know, but I was this little badass. It was like a total little punk goth girl. Like, I thought I was cool as fuck, you know, and I still think I'm cool as fuck. So it's not really all that different.
Well, everybody's reality is a little different.
But I was like, okay.
I'm just kidding.
I want to watch this shit. Like, you stole this fucking VHS copy from your parents. Like, let's fucking watch it,
Is it a porno?
Is it a fucking porno?
That's
like,
technically what it's
weird.
like. It's like having porno.
It kind of is.
At that age, especially?
So that young, being exposed to that film, I remember watching it for the first time and being completely just in awe and looking at it going, holy shit. Like,
right.
What the fuck did I just watch? But I will say the common ground between when I first watched the film to when I more recently watched the film to in comparison to when I just again watched the film.
Yeah.
The other day, the only thing that still resonates with me on the same level of just pure fucking disgust is the animal scenes.
Right.
And what is so sad to me is that I am still more upset about the scenes where they kill the animals, especially now that I know all of that is real.
Mm-hmm.
Every single animal that they kill in that film happened.
Right.
That was legitimate. They killed those animals in cold fucking blood on film for artistic purposes.
Right.
Which I do not fucking agree
Or
with.
food. Some of them
they
were.
They did give every animal that they did kill in that film, they did gift to the tribe so they could use it.
Right.
Which I understand. But still, it really bothers me. Like, that's one thing that I can't. And that sounds kind of sad a little bit.
No, it's not sad.
I was more bothered by the fact that they are killing and torturing these animals than anything they did to any of the humans in the film. That's a little sad.
Well, I mean, and to put it into perspective,
sad.
I think if like I have some vegan friends and they like will tell me like, how can you eat meat? Like, and they're not necessarily always pushy, but you know, it's like if we knew how our food was prepared, you wouldn't be able to eat it.
No.
Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't be able to eat meat because you'd be like, oh my God.
I specifically avoid that because I really like fish and I really like chicken.
Right. And I'm not saying that this movie is okay for what it did because even the director, the cinematographer,
everything.
And a lot of people that were attached to this movie were really upset that they pushed it to that limit, but they explained it as like kind of like being a lawyer and that if you're representing a murderer, like it's your job in a way. And they were so gung-ho on the idea of making this so realistic. Yeah. That even though they did it and they regret it like dearly, and it like caused so many problems for so many people, because they did animal murder, a lot of people thought that they actually murdered real people. Yeah. Which is fascinating.
Which, to me, like, I hoped, like, anytime I watched this film before I became a understanding and realistic fucking adult,
right?
I looked at that and went, that's just great makeup work. That's just great. Yeah. That's just great filming. You know, they didn't actually...
Some of the best, yeah.
kill and torture these poor fucking animals. No, they did.
Yeah.
Those are the only legitimate deaths in the entire film, are these poor fucking creatures that they literally peeled from the fucking jungle floor and they murdered them in cold fucking blood for this film. And I don't know, it really bothers the fuck out of me. And that's one of the biggest things that I will tip my hat off to Eli, because he would not fucking do that.
And you know what's really interesting though, is that even though we see these animal deaths in this movie, do you know that out of all the movies that have used animals and killed them, this is not even as bad?
No, it's not.
It just showed it.
And that's sad.
But, you know, a movie like Milo and Otis, where they were chucking dogs, or was it Homeward Bound? I can't remember. I think it was called Milo and Otis.
Don't tell me that. Don't ruin those movies for me.
Dude, they were literally, they went through 10, 20 dogs, throwing them off the cliff.
Oh my God, shut up.
I'm not joking, dude. So when you compare it to Milo and Otis, which is this heart-filled story of two friends coming together to make it, and then Cannibal Holocaust, when you weigh it together, Milo and Otis is the most fucked up.
I didn't know that, and that's like, that really makes me want to fucking vomit.
I can't watch it again because of it.
No, I will never. I didn't even like that
movie. Like, I still that makes me that's what I use to make me feel better about this movie.
Can't handle it. Like,
yeah.
I don't know, guys. I'm a big old fucking softie. But even when it's fake, it bothers me.
It's hard to swallow, yeah.
Even when it's fake, it bothers me. And that's again is a little sad about how that speaks to me more than killing a human for fake.
Well, they don't. The humans can. They've bought.
There's too many of them. Yeah. It's fine, but whatever. But still.
But the difference between the two, though, to me, is like
big fucking difference.
They wasted animals' lives for no point, whereas Cannibal Holocaust, at the very least,
it's a cinematic.
They ate them.
They did eat them.
They did every single one of them. Well, except for the spider and maybe the snake. I don't know.
The spider and the snake. Well, the snake, I'm sure they probably used, but the spider.
They probably did.
The spider's completely eviscerated.
But yeah, the spider's probably the biggest thing. And
my husband, I'm sure, is fine because he fucking hates spiders.
I don't like animals. I don't like spiders.
Fine with that shit.
Like, fucking kill them.
And I'm like, I fucking love tarantulas, so I'm like, God. And I had to rewatch that film and put those scenes on mute.
Yeah.
And look away.
Well, yeah, because there's a lot of screaming.
But I can watch the most fucking violent, gratuitously violent fucking murder scenes and not be bothered.
I think it's interesting, though, to make the comparison that, you know, something is like the imagery that is in the movie Cannibal Holocaust is less of a fucking waste of human or animal life than something like Milo and Otis, where they edited all of it out. Yeah, it's sad, right? Me. I think the movie, aside from the animal death, like for its idea and use of filmmaking to make it seem as real as possible, was not the first, by the way. It is not the first found footage film. The original first found footage film is called Punishment Park, and that actually came out 1971.
Nice.
There's two movies that pop out when you talk about found footage, and it's always going to be Blair Witch Project, which is the most recent, 99, I think it came out, and then you got Cannibal Holocaust, which came out in 80.
Yeah.
So, interesting. I still think what it did with it is believable in a lot of senses how they treated it. There's a lot of scenes in the movie that make you go, oh, that seems so real.
Oh, it's absolutely believable in almost every aspect of that film.
Right. Especially for its time.
When
like,
you
people are probably like, what the fuck?
That shit was released and the amount of controversy they dealt with after the fact of that film being released.
And we'll get into that.
And I mean, some serious fucking controversy after that was released. And I mean, that's something that wouldn't happen this day and age.
There is some parts of the gore that were good, like believable good.
A lot of
some of it wasn't.
I felt like more of and obviously since it was real, the most believable aspects of that film were the animal deaths versus the human deaths.
Right. But now here's the question. Do you think it would have hit with the public as much without the animal.
No,
Probably would have been
I don't.
just a regular dumb film.
I don't think it would have had the impact that it did if they didn't include the deaths of the animals in that film.
Because it was shocking.
It was shocking. It was shocking. It was disgusting. It made people fucking physically sick.
Yeah.
Because if you look at all of the other death scenes in that film, for the most part, all of them are very implied.
Yeah.
They're not direct.
They don't show it directly.
Obvious. If you especially if you compare it to a film like The Green Inferno,
Mm-hmm.
they are not very obvious.
Oh, that's very start to finish.
All.
Right.
It is very implied and but you have to imagine, you have to use your brain and picture exactly what's going on in these scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually prefer that in film, in a lot of aspects where there's a good story.
I like gore.
I love gore. I fucking love gore. I'm a gore whore to the fucking end.
Yeah.
The visceral feel of all of that, but there is a point where it gets gratuitous.
Shocking nature.
And it's annoying.
Right.
And that's where I get frustrated with films lately, is because they rely too much on gratuitous violence and gratuitous gore, and there's no fucking story.
Which is interesting that you say that, because part of the reason that the director made this movie is based on the fact that he was seeing so much news coverage of terrorism, of what they called,
was watching.
Yeah, the Red Brigades, and he thought that the media was focused on portraying violence with little regard for journalistic integrity, supposedly. Right. And he believed that a lot of it was staged because it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. So it gave him the inspiration to go, oh, why would people do that? And then he was like, ooh, what if there was like a movie that we made? And that's how it kind of came about.
Which is another reason why the film jumped to the status that it did.
Sure.
It's because it was something that a lot of people were thinking.
Just like Blair Witch, too,
feeling at that time frame was how much of what I'm viewing on this news station is actually legit.
Well, and I also think during the time that this movie came out, we were discovering new countries. People were being more aware of like where places were, like where Vietnam was and things like that.
Absolutely.
Like, so they were like, what parts of the world have we not seen?
People were becoming more educated.
Yeah, because of the television, and we
have more exposure to everything. So they're becoming more educated to the different parts of the world that they are not accustomed to.
Right.
And so then a movie like this comes along and they're going, holy fucking shit. Obviously these deaths of these animals are fucking real. Like, what's to say these deaths of these humans aren't fucking real, for the sheer dramatic value to make this movie.
Yeah, and even today, some of those animal death scenes you wouldn't even be able to fake.
No.
Like, it's just like, it's real.
The turtle.
Yeah, the turtle. That's the one my buddy James was like, dude, that's probably one of the most disturbing parts is the turtle.
And one of the main actors that plays, and they're all shit fucking human beings. Like the men, every man in Cannibal Holocaust is just like a shit human being in that film.
Right.
Perry Perkinen is the actor that played that character. I don't remember which character he was.
He was the one that shot the pig.
He's the one that shot the pig? Really?
I think so. And this is what led it into people believing that this film was real. In fact, I think it was 10 days after the film premiered in Italy, it was ordered to be seized by the local government, and Deodato was actually arrested on obscenity charges. He was later charged with making what they called a snuff film, which is big name back then, due to the rumors that claimed some of the actors were killed on camera, although it was cleared later on because he was like, he hit up his friend. He was like, listen, they're trying to convict me of murder. Can you please resurrect some of the people that we killed off and we made believe they were really dead? A lot of other countries just slapped it off. Like they took it out of the fucking cinemas. It grossed approximately $2 million in US and $21 million in Japan. So we were off by $6 million.
Sorry.
So that's huge. A lot of people compared this to the Blair Witch. The director, Deodato, was like, what are you talking about? What is this film that you mean? And then he went to see it opening weekend or a week or two after. And he was like, oh, this is nothing like my film. There are some parts that seem reminiscent of it. And maybe he's like, it's more about the style that they're using the camera.
That's the only thing I can see that's relatable.
I don't see anything else other relatable.
No.
He pointed out something that he saw a log in the water that could have been an alligator as an homage.
Yeah, the only relatable sequence reasons I can see for them comparing that to Blair Witch is how it's filmed.
It makes sense,
the
too.
same found footage, kind of shaky camera angle, that's been made very, very popular with films like Cloverfield and things like that, that it's taken from a viewer's video camera.
Mm-hmm.
It's not been fucked with, and it's not been, fixed.
Right.
And so I can see that aspect of it, but that is literally the only point that I can make a comparison to.
Right, and even when Cannibal Holocaust was made, they didn't have found footage films.
It wasn't a thing.
Yeah, it wasn't until fucking Blair Witch came around.
They were bridging on the found footage genre with Cannibal Holocaust, or the cannibal type films that came out a year prior or a year after or whatever. They're bridging on that aspect of that genre, but that's not something that they're thoroughly trying to introduce at that time frame.
And it kind of died off for many years. Did.
I'm sure there's other films that probably came out before the Blair Witch that I'm not familiar with.
Punishment Park.
Right, but the Blair Witch is really what popularized the found footage genre.
It took it to the mainstream,
and brought
just like
everybody's
Cannibal.
attention to it.
Yeah, Cannibal Holocaust was like mainstream-ish because it was in the news and everything like that. So a lot of people didn't see it.
Because it was so highly...
Right. But Blair Witch just fucking blew the doors off. And that's when everybody knew what the fuck it was.
Which I love found footage films. So.
I do too. I don't mind them if they're done right. There's a lot of bad ones.
There's more bad ones than there are good ones.
Yes. But when they're really good and they hit all the points and the acting's spot on and the information is like legit and they actually did their research, like it's legit. It's like actually pretty cool.
Oh yeah. There's one in particular that I fucking love. So
which
I totally feel you on that. And I'm going to space the name of it because I said that. Mila Jovovich is the main actress.
Oh, The Fourth Kind.
One. Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
I actually liked it too. I don't know why everybody was giving it. People got mad that they were tricked, and I didn't.
I got mad because I was tricked, so I get it because I thought it was legit as fuck until I did a little bit more research and I delved a little further into it and found that they fucking lied to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, you fucking piece of shit.
Yeah, I know. And I thought it was real too when I first saw it.
As much as Mouse and I fucking love aliens, to me when I watched that film, I'm like, holy shit. Like, all the shit they're feeding me, and then stupid fucking Fifth Element, Mila Jovovich is coming around like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, fuck you, you sultry bitch, feeding me these lines that I totally believe everything you're saying to me. And it was just, that film was fucking spectacular. Anyway, I digress.
No, that's fine. We'll have to watch that sometime.
Please, I love that movie.
One of the things about the locations that they were shooting here, when they first went out to find locations for this movie, the director, the producer, and the writer, and all these people went out to Colombia, but they couldn't find any jungle areas. And then they were literally headed back, and the producer was pissed. And he was like, we got to find a fucking place or not do this movie at all. And when they were riding back, they met a guy who had actually traveled all over the place. And he was like, yeah, we were trying to find jungles in Colombia. He was like, well, have you seen all of Colombia? And he was like, well, no, I haven't. We were looking for a jungle. We couldn't find it.
Seen 5%.
And he was like, go to Leticia. Okay. So then they landed. They went back to Leticia or something. And maybe they were in the airport. I don't remember if they left or not. But they flew to Leticia, which is right on the border of Colombia near Brazil and Peru. So it was like this, it was the Amazon, literally. And at this time, there was actually real tribes that would eat people at this time. Yeah, at this time, I believe. You could only fly into this place. They stayed in a hotel that was more like a shack. There was boats everywhere. That was the only way that you could travel. So they had to put all their gear, luggage, everything on a boat sometimes and just ride out in the middle of nowhere for these locations.
Yeah, it was still like that when they did the Green Inferno.
Right. And it was super dangerous too because there was piranha.
Well, actual legitimate fucking animals that will kill you.
Yeah. Piranha, crocs, sharks. They even said there were sharks that would come up the waterway from the main ocean.
Well, if they're close enough to a main ocean waterway,
they'll wander.
It's warm enough, even though it may be fresh water in comparison to salt. Bull sharks are notorious. Bull sharks in particular are absolutely notorious, especially in that type of setting where they will right upstream, even if it's fresh water, they can survive in fresh water perfectly fucking fine. And bull sharks are actually the most aggressive breed of shark. And they will cross between freshwater and saltwater. And they will travel up a fucking dirty ass fucking stream that you can't fucking see them. And they will eat the fuck out of you. They are fucking mean.
A lot of the times when they were in the water, I was like, what the fuck are they doing?
Get out.
And not only were there
piranha and giant fucking Amazonian snakes and shit.
And not just like regular animals and stuff were dangerous too, but they actually had this was like a drug haven. So a lot of people were like transporting drugs back and forth in this area.
Right. Oh, and the parasites.
Right. Well, and the
parasites that are completely unknown in the 80s in comparison to now.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck that. Like, I'm curious if the crew that was treated, like the crew in the Green Inferno was treated very severely for parasite infections when they returned from Peru after filming. And I'm curious if that even happened with the crew that came back after filming for Cannibal Holocaust.
Well, in the Green Inferno, I know Eli Roth wouldn't hire anybody as an actor unless they
were vaccinated.
They had to do a yellow fever shot.
Yep. They did.
So that's like something I didn't even consider about with these guys. But guys, I've already told you, like, there's two parts to this movie. The first part is like the professor trying to find these people. Second part is he finding the film and then watching it and trying to edit together.
Yeah.
And then realizing how depraved it was.
And how they negotiate to get the actual film.
Right. And so the first part, with the professor going to find them, they shot it in 35 millimeter. But the second part, they shot it in 16 millimeter to make it seem more realistic. Mm-hmm. Because most people,
that way.
Nobody would ever have a 35 millimeter camera back then. They would have a 16 millimeter always, or an 8 millimeter camera, or some shit. One of the actors who shot the pig, he said that it didn't actually bother him, and he didn't give a quote unquote hoot about that part.
Liar.
Even though he got threats for it, he did say that he was more upset about the monkey part, where they cut the brain open.
Well,
but because he said it felt like it was more like a human being.
Well, because they are. But the director actually had this whole crazy monologue for the actor that shot the pig that he wanted him to say after he shot the pig, but he fucked it up.
Right, he botched it.
He completely botched it after he did it, and they were only actually allotted one pig to slaughter.
Right, so they didn't.
So they couldn't refilm it, so they couldn't include this crazy monologue that he wanted to include. And I mean, part of me is very thankful because that was besides the turtle killing, that was the hardest part for me to watch was them shooting that poor defenseless fucking pig.
Right.
And probably because my dog's name's Pig, and he's a lot like a pig. So
yeah, that would bother me.
Sad.
I mean, that part was pretty crazy.
It was awful, and it's just a baby, and I'm like, come the fuck on.
Well,
but like but even with the monkey, they had to kill too.
Mm-hmm. Well, even Deodato said that you know that whole thing was one of the he's one of the biggest regrets he's ever had in his life is that he did the animal deaths.
Yeah, and he tried to avoid the monkey deaths as much as possible.
Yeah, and even the director of photography, Sergio Diafazzi, he said that he's not too proud of the work too because he didn't like taking advantage of weak things.
Absolutely.
So, which he meant by animals. So, I mean, and clearly, even though he said that nobody argued or rebelled against the situation, he said it was still.
Yeah, well, I mean, they use them,
right,
and they use them fully, which is fine. That's how anybody who hunts their actual food. That's what should be done. I mean, then they gifted all these animals to the tribes for them to use for food and for protection or whatever, like whatever they could use from them was all.
At least it didn't go to waste.
It didn't go to waste.
Like when they killed the monkey, they used 2 monkeys to do the shot. The only reason that they did real monkeys, by the way, guys, was not because Ruggero Deodato wanted to do it. He actually encouraged them to use fake brains, fake monkeys.
He had an actual fake monkey's skull and brain for them to use for filming in that particular scene, but they argued with him about it because it's a delicacy.
Right. And that's so when they're eating it, they're legitimately eating it. Yeah. But they had to do it 2 times, so that was like one of the only wasteful scenes, but it still was eaten.
It was still eaten, but yeah, they were technically allotted to kill too.
Right. On a lighter note, and probably the last little bit of trivia, they did play a trick on one of the girls in the movie. I think it was the main girl who was part of the club or the documentary people. They put a fake skull in the ground or something like that. Or I don't know if it was fake or real or not, but they put it in the mud and they were like, hey, what's that over there?
Shut up. I didn't see this at all. This is exciting to me.
Yeah. So they were like, and she was like, what? And he was like, over there, what is that? What do you got there? And she dug it up, and it was like a human skull. And she was like freaked out. Like she got suddenly scared, like that they were actually real cannibals around.
Oh, shit.
So she got like freaked out, like way too much. And they felt kind of bad about it because they said it was a little too far.
Oh, this is where I would come in and be like, can I keep it?
Yeah.
Can I keep this for my personal collection?
Let's pick some couple quick scenes that we think are pretty interesting for this. Just pick one each, and then we'll kind of wrap it up and like compare the two real quick. As far as like ingenuity or like scenes that kind of like iconic scenes, I would have to say the chick on the stick.
It's my personal favorite.
Yeah, I think that's like something I've never seen. It was most a horrific thing that it looked so real. And to give you guys facts about that, a girl was sitting on a bicycle seat.
Yes, they actually they put a fucking bicycle seat at the end of this, like, you know, whatever fucking piece, and I'm going to forget the complete name that they used for the actual stick.
The stake.
But they sat this bicycle seat around it, and that's actually what she sat on, and she held a piece of the wood, pointed piece of the wood in her mouth.
Right.
And sat completely fucking still for them to film that. And
they said it was abnormally
later.
still.
Yeah, I remember the notes from the director was he was very impressed with like how just plain calm that she was throughout the whole filming of that. And I was like, good on you, girl, because that'd be me.
Yeah.
The whole time, I'm just going to sit there like I'm actually got a fucking stake through my asshole.
The whole time. And while she's sitting there, she's like, I want to ride my bicycle.
I want to ride my bike.
You can get staked in the face, in the mouth, in the ass. Whatever the fuck.
And then the rest of me just goes, fat bottom girls, they make the fucking world go round.
What about you? Do you have any other, do you have another scene that you might want to bring forward? I mean, because there isn't like, it's hard to say, oh, my favorite scene.
It is hard.
There's moments that stick out for me, though.
It really is hard. But I feel like, to me, the worst. My favorite is the chick on the stick.
Right.
And iconic. Absolutely.
To elaborate,
iconic.
Elaborate on that scene. There's a part where the main guy who's doing the documentary comes up and he's like smiling. And they're like, hey, Rick, you might want to be careful. You know, we're on camera. And he was like, oh, God, how horrible.
Yeah, and that's the worst part to me. And like between that and the fact of when they're prior to that scene where they find her on the stick, where they're filming them raping this fucking girl.
Right.
And the female character goes along with it the whole time up until the dude she's fucking decides that he wants to get in on it too. And then she gets fucking upset about it.
I think she was pretty upset about the whole thing.
She wasn't that upset.
I think she probably was. It seemed like she was
more
upset.
obsessed about wasting the film that they had on that scene.
I think that was an excuse. Up
until the point where the dude she's fucking comes in and starts to rape this chick, and then she gets fucking legitimately upset and gets in on it too and tries to like stop it or whatever she's doing, and then she gets held off to the side by the other guy, and then her dude she's fucking or whatever like rapes this chick, and I'm like, really? That's your fucking tipping point? Like,
I felt like
you don't really seem like you care until that. Like, after all the shit that they've seen and they've been through, like, you're not really gonna try and stop them raping this girl until your little boyfriend goes in and
what it seemed like to me is that she was against it from the get, and then it wasn't like she really hated it. I think she was more just because of how conniving they all were. I felt like she was upset because she knew where it was headed and that he was going to have sex with that other chick.
I didn't feel that way.
That's what I don't know. It just seemed like it because she was using it as an excuse. Like, oh, we're going to run out of film. Why are you wasting film?
To me, it feels like for a while she's quiet about it. And then all of a sudden she feels that her little boyfriend or whatever is starting to pique interest.
Right.
And then she starts doing these subtle little like, oh, we're going to waste our film on this.
Right.
Why are you going to waste your film on this? We only have X amount of film that we have left, and we have all this other things to do, and blah, blah, blah. Her fucking boyfriend or whatever that wants to fuck this girl. And then she gets visibly very upset. And I'm like, bitch, please.
Right.
Like, and that, I mean, it's probably just because I'm a woman, so it really bothers me. But
no, of course. Like, I mean, I totally understand.
Really fucking pissed off from the get-go.
It was very uncomfortable for me, especially the first time I saw it.
Very, very, very uncomfortable. Like I've already stated, I just, the gratuitous rape scenes, I don't see the point in movies.
Well, let me ask you this. Compared to the two, I mean, not to say which one's better, but what do you think? Like, just a quick, poignant thing that you think about each one.
I'm going to go with, in comparison to the two, my favorites, Cannibal Holocaust, for the sheer fact of, in its time,
right,
what it did for that genre of film.
Okay.
It was something that was completely cutting edge and completely different than anything else that had ever come out of its day.
Okay.
And it followed so much controversy, and for many, many deserving reasons and many undeserving reasons. And,
right,
that was something that was completely unheard of for the 80s. And they did a lot with it. And in the same respect, as much as the storyline behind the Green Inferno just pisses me off,
right,
and falls short, and the stupid fucking bit comedy parts they throw in there to try and, keep interest in the film or whatever the fuck they're doing behind it. The makeup effects
was
and
badass.
the practical effects in that film are fan-fucking-tastic.
Right.
And that is Greg Nicotero all fucking day long, and his shit is fucking impeccable.
Right.
And I almost wish they had the effects and aesthetic from present day in the 80s.
Right.
Because I feel like that film would have been banned everywhere.
Yeah.
If they would have taken the shit that they had in the Green Inferno and put it back in Cannibal Holocaust in the 80s and came up with that shit then, amongst all the other deaths with the animals and everything else, and the conspiracy and the weird feeling that was behind the whole film of it being this legitimate cannibalistic tribe and these people actually died, and they did a great job of portraying that back then. I feel like if you could have merged bits and pieces of both films in together, that would have been a completely unstoppable fucking film that I can understand why it would be banned.
I get it, but I think that because it wasn't so grand in the original is what sold it as realistic to begin with. And because we're like in Eli Roth films, they're showpieces, where these were sort of like showpieces, but they were just so horrific and subtle. They weren't like, hey, let's show everything. It was like, hey, we're just getting a glimpse of this. Why would they get close-ups of this? So I kind of feel like, I don't know, but yeah, I'm in agreement. I think Cannibal Holocaust is a better film, even though I'm not a fan of the like animal death and shit like that. But what they worked in, the conditions that they worked in for the 80s movie back then had to been a lot worse than what they had to deal with these days.
Yeah, one of the worst conditions they had to work in these days was it being 110 degrees in the shade.
And at least the first film
sucks, but
and at least the first film was actually more believable than the second one. Like the second one was just kind of like showpieces. Like, you know what I mean? Like it did have some cool gore. I will give it that.
It's your typical Eli Roth,
outing,
boasting the feathers kind of film.
Yeah.
And this was his first film he directed in several years. So this was kind of his big quote unquote comeback.
It was a big movie to pick.
And it was a big movie to pick. And I almost feel like he shit the bed a little bit. Like he started off too strong.
He's very, very missed more than
great.
hit. He's great. I like him. I support him.
In a lot of ways, a lot of things that he does, he is great in his own way.
Yeah, there is good things about him. But like I said, I feel like he's more of a miss than a hit.
Absolutely.
And I think like Knock Knock was great. I loved it.
Film.
There were some parts I didn't like the headphones thing.
It's a different story though. It's
right.
a completely different storyline than a lot of films, and
it's a completely different tone from this one too. It's like
absolutely
like the acting is like completely different. So, but I think that's about it for these movies, guys. I know we've been rattling on about all this stuff for a while.
We're trying not to expose too much, too, for those of you vaginas that haven't seen these films yet.
And if you haven't already, I mean, it is a piece of cinema history.
At least watch Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah.
At the very least out of the two.
And I think there's a version without the animal killings that you can watch. Somebody was telling me that earlier.
It's not as prolific, though.
So, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's not the same impact.
No, it's
It
harder
definitely
to watch,
made me look away. Like, I was like, no.
Just mute it,
It wasn't even the sound that bothered me. It just didn't want to see animals.
Just mute it, guys. It makes it a whole lot easier to stomach if you just mute it. If you don't have to listen to it, it's still hard to watch, but if you just mute it.
I love animals too much, so it is very... I mean, I've seen it before in its glory, and I still watched a lot of, like, 70% of it, but there was times when I looked away and I was like, okay, turtle scene, don't need to watch. Gonna move on.
And it's just my biggest comparison back is when I first saw it when I was a wee little one. you know, 12, 13 years old and watching that film and just being like, holy fuck.
I can't even imagine, yeah.
You know, and still a little desensitized back then.
Right.
And now, in comparison to watching The Green Inferno or almost any other shocking horror film that's been released over the last several years, and comparing that to this movie from the 80s and going, why was this so fucking terrifying?
Right.
Why was this so shocking? This is absolutely nothing. These are all implied deaths of these humans.
Well,
the most realistic thing is these animals, but then you take that into account and you
weren't grandfathered into it. So
yeah, so you
weren't through the
progression.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, I wasn't lucky enough to be able to experience it in its grandeur.
Yeah.
You know, when it came out,
it would have been shocking as fuck.
In, you know, early 2000s, like very late 90s when I first saw it. And I feel like if I would have experienced it with the rest of the world in 1980 when it was released, I would have felt a whole lot differently. But I still feel, like I said, I prefer it over 2013's fucking Green Inferno. Like I prefer that over now.
Sure.
And I mean, and we are so...
Well, the Green Inferno is like a joke in my opinion.
So desensitized as a fucking society now. You know, we're gonna step it back a little bit after this week because we just did two very, very in your face, over the top, gratuitously violent, you know, films. So, you know, next week we're gonna dial it back just a little bit. But
we did something a little more fun, a little more.
It's our next theme's still pretty violent.
They're still pretty violent. Yeah, I guess you're right. But it's
we didn't digress that much.
Yeah,
it's still
true.
pretty
That's a good point.
Fucking violent. Like I wanted to digress a little bit further, but we kind of settled on a little more medium ground. But, you know, next week's going to be really fun too, you guys. It's something that's more of a legitimate fear amongst a lot of people. So
next week, since we're not going to be doing this week, by the way, for Thursday. So we're skipping this Thursday just for this week. And then next week, it'll be a Monday and Thursday episode. Yeah, we don't want to say what the movies are yet, but we will tell you on Monday.
Guess. I want to hear your guesses.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
Yeah. I want to know your guesses because I bet you they'll be right on one of them.
So sound off in the comments if you hear this.
Sound off.
Sound off. Yeah, I'm tired.
I know. I'm too.
But guys, thank you so much for coming by. We're sorry we can't make it on Thursday, but we will be back on Monday. If you haven't already, please be sure to check out longlivethevoid.com and also check out our Facebook group called Do You Love Horror? ? And make sure we'll add you in and you can join in on the conversations that we have in there with all these huge horror fans. So, but other than that,
thank you so much for listening, guys. Give us your feedback. We totally appreciate it. And stay weird, monsters.
We'll see you next week, guys.
Listening to Beyond the Void Horror Podcast. Tune in every Monday for a brand new episode.